can hold that up.
Oh, the room goes quiet as soon as that announcement.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, on Saturdays, I used to go with my father to the dump. And the dump back then was like everything, just big piles of all kinds of stuff. And he's still pulling on the wheel, pulling that out.
You know when you need it.
Back then, they actually had car junkyards that were the same way when you're looking for
Oh,
parts.
yeah.
That let you go in there and
Take
actually
stuff out.
strip a part out. And once you say, here's what I got, here's you go, they charge you whatever bucks. And if it was too much, then you ask their guys to do it, you know?
Right.
But they'd let you climb on the piles of cars and stuff, really play around and pull this off.
I just gave my daughter a.
Well, it's 5 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I would like to welcome everybody. Let's stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you all for attending. You know, this is a fascinating topic.
I'll make it fast.
Before we get started with the main event, any citizens' comments, anything that anybody would like to speak to regarding what's not on the agenda? And again, this is our special select board meeting for the purposes of hearing from our auditor. Hearing none, Julie, you want to introduce our guest?
Sure. So as I just give a little backstory so that we all kind of remember a little bit of why we're here. The end of last year, we had brought to our attention that there was something referenced in the audit that maybe showed a deficit from 2024. At that time, I had talked about not feeling that that was right, wanting to have the auditors restate. I had chatted with Ron a fair amount about, if we could do a deep dive, take a good look. Make sure that that number is correct. We had a strong feeling it wasn't. And so that's where we're at. We restated 24 as we redid 25. I know Peter is not here at the moment. A lot of this was brought about because of concerns that he had. So Ron will address everything from the restated 24. He will review the 25, which, as was anticipated, does state that we do not have a deficit, as I said. So I think just hand it over to Ron. He has a presentation and a slideshow. He's going to kind of go through, take us through what is an audit, what do we look at, all those things, and answer any questions. Peter had submitted some questions, so I think we'll still answer those so that they're on the record for him to review. Maybe he's going to come in late, but I'm just going to give it to Ron.
Yep. Good evening.
Thank you,
I'll
Ron.
just tell you a little bit about me. Born and raised in St. Johnsbury. So I work with 90 other professionals. I've been doing this for close to 40 years, so it's been a while. So that's all I've ever lived is the world of government and nonprofit. I think we audit all the school systems in the state of Vermont. We audit probably a lot of municipalities, Maine and Vermont, probably Maine. I'd argue we probably audit more than half of Maine municipalities, state government in Maine. So we know a lot, and I know a lot about Vermont. And I'm here to try to take Vermont and apply it to the town of Chester, Maine, and go over your finances and really kind of talk about some of the things, that Julie and I have talked about with Deb and, things like that, and answer any questions you guys got. So, and I know that there was some pre-scripted questions that I saw that I had a chance to review with Julie and Deb, today. So I'll tackle those, as well. So what I did is I took a numerous page document and pulled some excerpts out of it to have the talking points. And I put like 12 or 13 slides in this presentation so that I could go through it with you and just show you the evolution of an audit, really the conversation pieces, and get into the conversation specifically to the town of Chester. So excuse me, I always like to do this, okay? I always like to say, what's your role in an audit? What's our role in an audit? So those are the first two slides that you're going to see there. What's your role in the audit? To provide us information, for us to look at it, for you to provide us your policies, your procedures, the things you're doing, source documents when we ask for them. Those are your roles in the audit because these are your financial statements. Our job is to put our report in front of them that says, hey, if we found any fraud, defalcation, problem with the numbers, we'd have to notify you right in those first 3 pages of our audit opinion. That didn't happen to the town of Chester. You got our highest opinion, an unmodified opinion. We took a deep dive well beyond an audit this year into the deficit, as it was labeled. I'm going to attach that to education and how you pay your education payments there and what was done, so that we can, kind of get to, the definition and the fact that the school causes some problems with some timing payments, which led to that perceived deficit, upon first view, and based upon the way you were posting your payments to the school system. So we deep dived into that for last year, for this year to address that, and we'll talk about that a little bit deeper here, so I can show you the math to it. So those are your roles and responsibilities, and our roles and responsibilities to take an independent, objective look to take information that you give us, to take your policies and practices and make sure you're doing what you say you're doing. Give you some advice. Make sure the numbers are what they say they are. So that's our role, that independent role that we have. In the state of Vermont, and a lot of people don't realize this, the state of Vermont, you're not required to have an annual independent audit. Only if you spend $750,000 last year or $1 million. This year is the new threshold for federal funds. Okay. And you clearly have had a lot of federal funds passing through the town of Chester. Sadly, some for wrong reasons, because you've had to put your town together a few times because of Mother Nature. And that happened a lot in Vermont. Where up in Brighton, where my house is, we had 2 storms of the century in less than a year up there and wiped out our town. So, and that was common in the state of Vermont. And it actually has exposed a problem here in Chester that we'll talk about it too. Finances, cash flow. So the audit report that we put, the next couple of slides are talking.
Before you get through to the next page, can you just explain to me the auditing standards, the GAAP and the GASB?
So GAAP aren't auditing standards. Those are accounting standards.
Okay.
General accounting principles. GAAS, generally accepted accounting principles. GAAP, generally accepted auditing standards, for that. Both of those sets of principles apply. And there are thousands of those standards depending on what you're talking about. And somewhere back in the late 80s, when basically the United States of America started collapsing because the city of New York and Missouri, Texas, they were defaulting on their bonds. Somewhere around in the late 80s, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and no, it's not the federal government, okay? The Governmental Accounting Standards Board was birthed. Why? To come up with general standards to say, when you go for debt, when you go for any type of negotiation for financial instruments, we want you to be transparent and give full disclosure. Because what happened is there was no disclosure requirements for these governments. So what'd they do? Well, we're going to forget about $100 million bond. Put that on our financial statement. We're going to forget those things. Okay? We're going to give you what you want. Government, Congress stepped in and said, we're going to form an independent board out there. It's called the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and you will develop standards specifically around governments. So those standards apply to, specifically governments, and government is defined typically as a political state or political subdivision of the state or the U.S. federal government itself. So there's a definition in there, and those standards were defined for that. So there's accounting standards that go with the math, that I call it. There's auditing standards that go with the details of the math. And then there's the Government Accounting Standards Board, who writes these standards and said, you will provide these disclosures and it will be set up this way. So when you look at the town of Chester's financial statements, if there was a Chester, California, it'd be the same format under the same principles. These are nationally accepted. So
So, not getting too far into the weeds, maybe 10 words or less. What's the difference between the government regulations or requirements versus the non-government?
So the government specifically applies to governments. Accounting applies universally to the any business in the country. So hold that thought. Under governments, if you're a government, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board said, hey, that'll apply to our businesses as individuals. It won't apply to governments. We're going to write special standards for them. So they add standards over and above accounting standards. So.
Excellent, thank you.
So, and then they put in words like estimates of materiality to bore you even a little more, you know, which are other generally accepted terms that go with those standards. So. And those are the first 4 slides, you know, pretty much who you are, what we are, and really the kind of the some of the ground rules, for lack of important ground rules, to put the next 4 slides together for you, which are really the talking points of your financial statements. So I'm on page 5 of the handout. And in your audit report, this would be statement C. Okay. So that is your balance sheet as of December 31st, 2025, that we'd apply these standards to. So the first conversation is your general fund. And simply said, your general fund had about $3.3 million, you know, of assets against almost $3.3 million worth of liabilities and other responsibilities. So what's that mean on December 31st for Chester? You have no money. Okay. It's that simple in your general fund. Okay. So to run town government and town services, the town is lean and mean. You have no equity. You have no surplus. Okay. And that's the way it's been for a few years at this town, is that you've operated under those conditions. I don't ever recall a day where this town was flush with money. Okay. So your general fund, certainly this shows that. Julie talks about a deficit from last year. That deficit that you can see, whether or not you had one or not, and I'll get into the details of that here in a little bit on what that deficit was last year that we went back, dug into, restated, and stated it the same way this year. It had to do with the timing of your school payments. Whether or not you had a deficit last year or not, let me just leave no doubt, you've got no money. You've got no money. So.
But we're not in the hole.
You're not in the hole either, but I'm going to tell you, you got no money. So what's that mean? Ron, why is that important? Well, I'm just thinking out loud. If you've got infrastructure projects, Mother Nature comes and wipes your town out where you've got to put it back together and you've got no cash flow, you know, to do it. Where are you going to get the money from? Okay. And that's why people build up capital reserves, you know, emergency reserves, tax stabilization reserves. You've built up almost everything but a tax stabilization reserve here at this town. You know, so, and that's important to notice because that's how many municipalities fund acts of God or unforeseen circumstances that need to be paid for. Okay. One of your primary go-tos here in Chester, and it has been for the past couple of years as you've been a busy town, starting with that public safety building, coming right up through today and your infrastructure projects, you've had to borrow money in anticipation of getting paid back to put your roads and things like that from FEMA. Okay, so the town is lean and mean. You are at break even. Okay, 25 was a tough year because you overspent your anticipatory budget that you had last year. Okay, so that took all the equity away from, because when we went back and restated it, we actually restated it to about $200,000 or $300,000. Well, guess what? You were $200,000 or $300,000 overspending some tough budget articles, you know, and it wiped out your surplus. Okay. And that deficit last year, just to get in a little bit to the details, was nothing more than timing that we found out between your school assessment and when you statutorily have to pay your school assessment. And what's that mean? There's a statute that says when you collect money, you have 20 days to turn it over to the school. Okay. So So, and then there's another statute that says for your delinquent taxes, you have to pay it over to the school within 30 days of collection, I believe is what the statute says, or you have to pay it by the end of the school fiscal year. It's that simple. And based upon how you guys were like posting payments and some of the payments after January 1st and, you know, some agreements, I'm sure, with the school, okay? Those timing differences led to that deficit. We went in and dissected it, and what caused that deficit? Simply, school's on a fiscal year, July to June. You've got to marry two budgets with your one budget because you're on a December 31st year end. So that didn't help that money. And we literally went in, you know, worked with you all to kind of take your past bookkeeping practices, put our arms around it and go back to Julie and say, I see exactly what's causing this deficit. The timing of school fiscal years, the timing of your payments, how you're paying them, and then settling up with that school by June 30th, which is in the middle of your fiscal year. So that led to that deficit. We came up with the math. We've got an eloquent work paper that we've gone over with you guys that says, here's those differences. So, yeah.
Was the timing on that school thing, that messed it up?
Messed it up. Think about this. You've got delinquent taxes that you haven't collected on December 31st. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't pay those. You haven't caught your money
We
yet,
didn't get the money for
but you paid them in the next fiscal year. So that's going to affect what you owe the school because the statute says that's deferred until the next year until you actually collect the money or you pay the school back by June 30th, whatever you've negotiated with the school department. That's in statute. So your December year end, that's not the end of the school year. Okay. So you're actually dealing with two school budgets in your year. Okay. So as you're paying, settling up last year's paying, you know, that math is going to affect what you pay, how you pay, and the timing as you cross over into that fiscal year. And here's the other thing on it. When you have your grand list that sets your tax rate, okay, that's just an estimate at the beginning of the year when you set the school budget. So what happens somewhere in May or June, not May or June of the school's year, which is the middle of your year, you get another form from the Agency of Education. And in 2024-25, you actually overpaid your school payments by $100,000.
That happens.
This year, happens every year to every municipality. These are things that we weren't reflected in your math, and we literally dissected that, you know, to make sure that we got the right year, the right overpayment with the town's year. What do you do about that? Well, if I were you, I'd change your fiscal year to align with the school's fiscal year. Just throwing that out there right now. Okay?
Do it, huh?
Yeah, well, it's easy.
Towns that have.
You got the statutory, listen, a lot of towns have. A lot of towns have.
There's ways to do it.
So it would go from the
We can.
correspond to the school year.
Yeah.
We can.
Yeah.
And we're going to have those conversations.
And we're gonna talk about that
We'll
too.
look at it.
In the state. So there's some big reasons.
Solve a lot of our problems.
Think about it. In March, you're having a March, and I'm not a fan of March town meetings. I get it's our constitutional right, but your school, the biggest piece of your budget has 3.5 more months left of its fiscal year. A lot of things can go wrong, and boy, here's probably the person that can tell you about that. In those 3.5 months, what's going to happen in those 3.5 months? You're setting a budget. Okay, the school year hasn't even ended. They're going into the next fiscal year, and there's some statutes that handle those deficits. Okay. My thoughts are, and listen, you can actually defray your piece of that school budget. There's some statutory language that allows you to defer and move it closer to June. A lot of towns don't do that, okay, because they want to coincide and align with the school's budget and town meeting, okay. I think a June town meeting would probably make the most sense in the state of Vermont, like it does for all the other states that are surrounding us when they have their town meetings. And that way, the biggest piece of your budget that you're going to write those checks out for aligns with the timing of that budget. And then they're through their year as you're closer to June. So if your stars align with your biggest expenses at your town, may I suggest that the state of Vermont, and I've already had these conversations with some legislators, you know, and some testimony when we were talking about education, you know, 2 years ago when they were talking about some things, now these mega districts, you know, that they're talking about. It's like, why on earth aren't you moving away from past practice and getting into something that makes sense and having the stars align with your governments? and especially school to municipalities. So yeah, counties too, another one. So
If we don't collect that tax money for the schools, the town's responsible for it the next year, whether we get it or not.
and if the school, listen, and if the school is in a deficit, which you won't know in March, if the school is going to be in a
They're
deficit,
responsible for
here's
it.
your bill. Here's your bill.
We have to pay the full.
So that to me, sitting on both sides of the fence makes the most logical sense for a government to try to get closer to a line with its biggest budget line item. So food for thought, okay? So getting into here, when I look at that balance sheet, what do I see? $3,000 of equity for the town of Chester on a almost $6 million municipal gut budget and a $13 million school budget. That is a lot. That is not a lot. Okay. That's not even a phone ringing, or a text saying, hey, I think a boiler just went in one of our buildings here. So you're lean and mean. No deficit, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna flip the conversation. You've got no equity. You've got no fund balance to run your government services that you have. You've calculatedly put money off to the side for reserves and some things like that. I think you got to take a hard look at that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So, and here's really what kind of like brings it all to, depression. Here's one that does have a deficit, okay, and creates a problem and really exposes the town of Chester, what I just talked about. The next column, your grant funds. Those grants are on reimbursement basis, okay? If you don't have the money to pay for them, how are you going to put your town back together? How are you going to pay for these grants, get reimbursed from the federal government? These are pay as you go. We'll reimburse you as you go. If you don't have the money, you've been forced to borrow in anticipation of grants, in anticipation of infrastructure. And you're going to have to get used to that for the next couple of years, through this conversation, because you got to get out of that mentality. And that's why governments have reserves, so that they aren't forced to the only option they have, to borrow money. A lot of people had to borrow money to put their towns back together. Many towns around. Why? $1 million, $3 million, $9 million for one of our municipalities. That doesn't grow on trees, but the fact that they had to go borrow, put it together, state came out with some creative financing to put money in the municipalities' pockets that didn't have money out there. Well, you don't. Okay, so having these reserves, having these capital reserves, having access to cash, for an emergency or for something, that you didn't anticipate down the road that you need to take care of, you don't have that opportunity here in Chester. And that fund was in the whole $600,000 with various grant projects. I think the largest was probably FEMA, that you had, that you're waiting till after December 31st. You've already paid those bills. You're in the hole, you're waiting to get reimbursed after December 31st. That caused two things, caused cash flow problems and angst. And you having to go to the bank and saying, hey, I need anticipatory borrowing to pay for this until my money comes in. And with FEMA, that money doesn't come in all at once. It comes in, it trickles in. And that's what's happened, as it's trickled in, its brackets go away. So
you're saying that 600,000 is what's owed the town, but you haven't received it?
You haven't received it. You did some of it this year.
Many grants, there are groups of grants where we are able to requisition monthly, but the majority of grants, you have to expend everything. The grant has to be fully expended.
And at the end, when they figure it all out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And that's why we have grants in a separate grant fund, so it doesn't mess with our general.
Yeah.
That's why we did that many years ago.
You're always in the hole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why
Once you
people
have a grant.
create great reserve funds. So just, again, another conversation we'll have a little deeper. Your solar field, well, it looks like you got $1 million. Well, you did on December 31st, but that's about to go away. That's about to go. Don't use and spend that money. You've already spent it. So, and then the storm of 2023, you've got some money there. FEMA advanced you some money. You've got projects that support those payments. Don't go spending that. So what's my whole purpose? Why I said don't spend it? Because it's dedicated. It's earmarked. It's not your general government. It's things that fall outside your general government. And this town's been busy with a lot of projects and infrastructure. So, and then you got your other governmental funds, and that's largely made up of, I think that there's some grants in there too, with FEMA, but that's largely made up of your capital projects fund, which on December 31st had like $900,000. Don't spend that. It's already earmarked. A lot of that money got spent this fiscal year. So you can see you have no money. And not only did you have any money, I just want to say this too, because the strength in numbers, especially when you can see it. Everybody look under that general fund and see that $547,000. First number in the first column, $547,000. Okay. That's all your money that's pooled, except for some trust money and some endowment money that you've got that's segregated from your general checking account. $547,000. Well, Ron, we only have $3,000 to our name. Why do we have $547,000? Because your capital projects money is pooled with your general fund money, and that's what you've been living on day to day to get through your peaks and valleys of cash flow right there. So I'm saying you've got $900,000 worth of cash flow, right? It's not the general funds, okay? It's capital projects. And you needed that money to pay for some of the other special purpose, some of the other departments within your general fund. The flood. If that number's in brackets and you haven't been paid back by the state of state of Vermont, where'd you get paid from? You're using your money in those other funds to do that. And that's a practice you want to get out of too. And that's why I'm saying those reserve funds should be fully funded. You had no choice. There was nothing you could do. Your loan money didn't come in fast enough. You needed that money to pay for putting your town back together, putting these grants, projects, moving them forward, and you had to scrape for every dime to do that. So
How do you build reserve funds without raising taxes?
yeah. So listen, you need to think about you need to listen. I know I'm not going to be popular when I say this, but I'm going to tell you, you need to think about raising taxes. It's
Well,
that
we did,
simple.
and this year we budgeted
No, I know,
40,000.
but it doesn't seem like it's nearly enough to do what we want.
Going
what
to
we should
take
be
time.
doing.
And he's going to get into some of those.
I'll get into some of those details, but I'd argue your tax rate has been kept artificially low because you don't have any money. You've used it to keep your tax rate low. Why you've made those choices, why you've made some spending choices, perhaps and should have borrowed, but use your fund balance to pay for these things, it's showing up here. So.
It's the argument in every budget about any time you want to have any sort of reserve is that our taxes are too high. You have to bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. And we all wind up doing it every time by gambling that we won't need it in the future, even though we know we're going to need it in the future.
And I'll tell you, your gamble, she couldn't have said it any better. Your hand got called when Mother Nature came. She called your hand. Truly, that storm exposed your town for exactly what she just said. You lost that hand, okay? And it depleted almost all of your cash to put your town back together. We had to go to the bank, who is the only other alternative, to get money to finish the rest until FEMA came through and reimbursed you, or other grants for sure. So
And the other thing is, we've had this conversation about reserves over the years. The year we set the reserve fund, the voters said, no, we don't want you hanging on to our money. Well, this is why you would need to have a fund balance. So getting over that.
It was a hard discussion to
It was a
convince people
hard
to even.
discussion.
but think about it too.
We've had it several times.
Think about it too. Whatever these projects are, whatever these infrastructures are, I'm just stating a fact here. It costs more money today to do it than it would have cost you 2 or 3 years ago when you probably could do it, but you didn't have the money to do it. That's always the argument. Well, we'll pay later. You're gonna pay, especially for roads or reconstruction or infrastructure, you'll pay a premium, period. And that's where a lot of this deferred road maintenance and things like that. Boy, I'll tell you, that $1 million bond that's $2.5, $3 million now. There's the argument for it right there.
You just went through with the sidewalks.
Yeah, and that's the reason why you have reserve accounts, because borrowing, good option, borrow long-term money for long-term projects, but I'll tell you, tough to be the only option. So the next slide is your money coming in and coming out the door. So that $13-ish million budget, and
What page you on?
I'm on the very next slide. I'm on page 6. So you can see by this slide, the money coming in the door for your grant reimbursements in the second column to kind of keep going where I did. And the money going out the door, the $2.9 million, you're already sideways by $625,000 because you haven't been paid that money by the state. I'm in the second column on that page under your grant funds. So your money isn't coming in fast enough to reimburse you for your projects. And that's the best way we can show you right there why that number is in brackets, because that money, a lot of that money came in after the first of the year, but didn't come in by December 31st when you'd already spent it. So you go spend 2.3, you go spend 2.9 and you collect 2.3, you're in the hole by $600,000. And that's why that number has that brackets on it, because that didn't come in until after December 31st. Okay. And that education payment, that $7,489,000, that's the math that caused the deficit from the year before. That's 2 school budgets in there, okay, in your 1 fiscal year. So we went back and we came up with a lot of logic, because it wasn't based on what you paid, based on how and when you paid the school. We made sure that we knew what your uncollected taxes were, because we were able to come up with math on that. Why? Because statute says you don't have to pay that. You know, by the end of the year, yes. You know, when you collect it, yes. You hadn't collected it all on December 31st. Okay, so that's deferred. So we came up with all that math, and it didn't take us long to sit down with Julie and say, hey, okay, here's the reason why you got your deficit. It's the timing of these payments for the school education. So we allocated math to 2 school budgets to your calendar year is the best way I can say it. So, but either way, deficit or not, you are lean. You got no money. You got no money.
So would it help us if the state collected those education taxes directly instead of us?
No. I don't think the state will ever do that. If I were you, I wouldn't want that to happen. No way. So I want you to collect those taxes for many reasons, and I'm just gonna shut up. But that's what
I just was thinking that, we, probably the best fix is to change our fiscal year. That would be the
I think
most logical.
I think when we get to the end, we're gonna have about 4. This ain't one fix. This is about a lot, okay? And over time, because this ain't gonna get fixed overnight, okay? It's gonna take you some years to do it. I'm just putting the seeds down so we can watch it grow on how you're gonna fix it. 2-3 years, and you'll see in a second what I would do to get us there, right? So that's that page. The capital projects fund. You know, the math changed because it's now not a major capital fund for many reasons, because you spent a lot of that money. We moved it to, basically the best way I can say it, we moved it to another location in your financial statements. So that's the money coming in, going out. Now here's the interesting one to have a conversation, and it really will put the solar field into context too. So when you flip to the next 2 pages, which is 7 and 8, you're gonna see your water and sewer department, okay? And I'm gonna look at you and I'm gonna tell you, me being me and doing this for 40 years, you've got similar problems there, okay? And these infrastructures, your equity that it clearly says that you have, it's in your infrastructure. You don't have any liquid equity in your water and sewer department, because it's all tied up on your infrastructure projects that you had to go borrow money on. And what do you have to show for it? Infrastructure projects, filtration systems, things like that.
And
Okay.
this is the operating.
Yeah, this is the operating. This is the operating. This is not the
capital.
capital, please. This is the operating. So when you look at that page for the water fund, you can look at the second number up at the bottom and say, you've got positive equity of $557,000. In the water department, you've got positive equity of $631,000. Okay, everybody see those 2 numbers? Okay, but look at the number right above that. Your operational number is in a deficit, and it's in a deficit because all your money's tied up into infrastructure, and you had to go borrow the money. So as you go borrow, as you pay down that debt for water and sewer, and there's about $100,000 I think left for water department here at this year, and millions in sewer.
Yeah.
So as you pay down the debt, here's what happens. That positive number on the top that you see goes down, and the brackets start going down too. Why? Because you're paying your debt back, because debt's attached to your equity. It's not like you can go take a filtration plant or something like that and say, hey, I'd like to borrow some money against it, like a house or things like that. So it doesn't work that way. But your equity was generated by having to borrow money. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. That's the right thing. Because I can remember talking to Dave Pisha about that. Like, you got no choice. This is what you want to do. Problem is, it's going to take you years as you start paying that debt down to get those brackets off. And that's exactly what that's telling me right now, is that you are sideways in operations. And I'm going to show you what that means on the very next page. So there's the money coming in. There's the money going out. Look at the change in net position. Okay. Sewer, not so much concerned about, but concerned. Water, yeah, definitely. Because operationally, you guys struggled, this past year. And a lot of that is, depreciation, which I think is a very real number, because that's truly the wear and tear on your infrastructure that you've got with your sewer project, with your sewer infrastructure and your water infrastructure, And what's that tell me? I'll get to the solution. You're not generating enough operating income to pay for your two utility departments. And I'm concerned too about your solar field. I think it's a great investment. Okay. Just don't expect that to pay for itself in a year, 2 years. It's going to take multiple years. Why, Ron, will it? Because you borrowed $1.1 million to go put the thing together. You're going to be in the same situation, same premise, same situation as water, wastewater. Same exact thing.
Well, and the thing to note on the water fund, one of the reasons that we did, this just popped into my mind, that way is, remember, we paid for the meters out of what we thought was fund balance. So that was unbudgeted. That was 150,000. And as we have been increasing the water sewer rates, we recognized that on water, we were still budgeting. What happened with us, Ron, is we hadn't raised rates since COVID.
Yeah.
And so we were gradually starting to build.
Yeah. And the problem is, everything went up 400% for wastewater and water.
And you couldn't do that in 1
And
year.
there's no way you can do that in 1 year.
Right.
What I'm saying is, those brackets are going to go away through attrition as you pay those debt service. But the other problem is, you're using all your equity to pay for debt service every year. You're not building any type of contingency to rate. So what do you got to do? You got to expand your customer base, or you got to raise your rates, or a combination of both. And may I suggest, if you go start raising your rates, come up with a 3, 4, 5 year plan. You can make this work. This isn't hard. And I think it's something you guys are looking at right now anyway. So, but I'm forewarning you, solar project, same boat next year. You borrowed $1.1 million. My alma mater, the St. Johnsbury Academy, thanks you, by the way, for being a good Thank you very much. Thank you very much on behalf of St. Johnsbury Academy. So, but that's going to be the realization too. When you add that third column there next year for that solar field, it's not going to look as bad as water and sewer, but I'll tell you, it's gonna have brackets on numbers because of the debt attached to it. So where all your equity is. Okay?
We're in the hole for 10 years.
Yeah. However many years you're in the hole. So what do? You got to look at expanding that base, which is probably going to mean expanding that farm. I mean, it literally forces you to say, how do we get out of the hole before 10 years? Okay. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's livable, for you guys. Don't know, but the numbers don't lie. And I'm just saying that third column is going to look like the conversation we just had with water.
How can you run any of these things, government and water, sewer? It sounds like you shouldn't take out any loans or any debts.
No, I think that.
Otherwise, because you're always going to be in the hole.
I think a lot of it's going to be just the discipline, and really base. That's the think about it. What's your commercial base in the town of Chester? Okay, what's the commercial base attached to water and sewer?
A few.
Right. So what do? You go do what the town of Scarborough, Maine just did. You go do what the city of South Burlington's doing right now. Go diversify your base, and you go bring in other uses into that base that actually adds capacity to your system. What that's going to cause is more of an investment, and that's what people had the foresight to do, to say, you know what, this is what we look like today. What are we going to need to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, so that we can have these conversations, just like you just said.
That's exactly what the town plan process that you just had a meeting on all gets to.
And I think you're talking about a lot of this stuff, and the numbers support your conversations, is what I'm trying to say. So that's the water sewer. Next year, one of the big changes is you'll see a solar column. So now, I'm on page 9. All right. So I'm just stating facts here based on the conversations we had and based on the math and the numbers. Okay. That the industry targeted fund balance, you talk about these standards, okay? The industry targeted fund balance from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, that'll use these numbers to support their standards. GFOA, Government Finance Office Association, which is attached to government. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, bond rating agencies, they go by equity. And what they say your target equity is for your general fund is 30, 60 to 90 days of your operating budget, okay? And in your general fund operating budget of about $5.8 million, that's $466,000 for the lowest range and $1,450,000 for the highest range, 30. So what would be right in the middle? About 900,000, $1 million, okay? So there's the range. You got $3,000. So you got some work to do. Got some work to do.
A little. Well, a little while ago, we were, talking about a
I'm not-
deficit
I was
of
gonna say,
$500,000.
I was accused of a $500,000 deficit, so I'll take the 3,000.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? You got some work to do? Collecting your rescue department service billings. Yeah, and I know it's a big discussion now that you guys have. It's a buffet of things that you're doing. Valuable, one of the most important services that you run. You got to start chasing your money. So yeah.
We've
so
got
that's
some
what-
internal stuff we're
Yeah.
doing with some policy stuff we're working on there, which you'll be updated with it.
And then I think that the obvious one is you definitely have cash flow problems in your general fund because you don't have any equity to take care of it. So. And then the other things that you're doing that are vital and necessary, they're putting a strain on your cash flow that you don't have. Okay, you're using everything, to do this until you get reimbursed later for these projects that you do. And you're not here, not once have you heard me say, stop the practice. Recognize what you're doing, and try, don't be reactionary. There's plenty of things that you can do. And then the next slide is your other funds. And clearly, I think I've kind of beat those to death, there, on that page about where all your money is. Please do not spend the last 3 bullets. They are dedicated and already spent after December 31st, 2025. And conversely, which is the better news, is the 619,000 for those various grants. A lot of that money's come in already. December 31st. Problem is, it's a cycle. It comes in and reimburses that, but money's already gone out. You haven't been reimbursed that. So it's like a cycle. So.
And I should point out, one of the things that we talked about, that a change made for 2026 is on the large projects like the sewer project, the sidewalk project, is establishing its own fund. So you can track the in and the out on these big, like a large structures grant that's, a $200,000 project. Those are in and out in the same year, usually. But these large projects like sewer and sidewalk that are multi-million dollar, they're going to have their own fund. And so everything in and out on that is going to be in one fund. So it's easier to audit and it's easier to show in any kind of reporting. It's not mixed in with it.
Decisions.
Yeah.
Easier
It's
to
not
make
mixed in with everything else.
isolated decisions.
Yeah. It'll be much easier to track them that way.
Where do delinquent taxes, like we have $500,000 of delinquent taxes, where does that fit in all
So
of
if
this?
you have to, so it fits into how you pay your school, I'll tell you that. So it fits into your cash flow too, because you don't have the money, because it's still out there.
Right.
But if you go back and look on that statement C, which was like the first numerical slide, the number's already there, and I believe it was over it.
That's okay.
So, but think about it, you don't have it, so that impacts cash flow. Okay, you don't have your ambulance money, that impacts cash flow. Okay, so yeah, cause and effect.
Right.
So now, water and sewer review funds, I just kind of beat that one to death. You got no operational equity money It's all tied up into your infrastructure, which is attached to debt. So that's, you gotta pay off that debt to stop running in
Are we on
place.
11?
I'm on page 11, yeah.
So the second bullet made me chuckle.
Yeah.
No pun intended, right?
That's it.
No liquid operational funds.
I kind of have a little humor to this. Okay. I didn't want to put on the other one, the last one, when you read that one. I didn't think that was a good chuckle. I wanted to put what I wanted to put on there. So, I mean, those are the talking points. The good news out of it, you got the capital reserve money, you got that 900,000, that's earmarked. A lot of that is water and wastewater. That's not part of those. That's not part of this. That's separate. So you got that money set aside. You had a little prowess to do that. So that's the good news. We got some money set aside for water and wastewater in our capital projects fund. Not nearly as enough as I'd like to see, but certainly something as a start. It's definitely a start. You have more money set aside in reserves for special reserves, not enough, but more money. Think about it than you do to run your town government. That's a problem. It's a problem. So now I'm going to page 12. And what do? Well, you're not fixing this problem overnight. And may I suggest you do it in 2 steps. You start building a general fund balance. In step 1 and step 2, go from 15 to 30 days, come up with the math on that, so that you can start planning to put some money away for much needed days when you're gonna need it. So it's gonna be a 2-step process. I would argue those 2 steps will take you 3 to 4 years.
So how do we do that?
You already did it this year because you already put a reserve.
Yeah, I need
account
money in the
place.
reserve.
Okay,
That's how you do it.
that's how we're doing.
Let
Okay.
me tell you, with the logic to it, so you can, if the townspeople say, don't want to do it, here's what the logic, establish a general fund balance policy that says, we got no money, okay? But I'll tell you, here's what a lot of municipalities are doing, many municipalities are doing. We can give you a buffet of them so that you can make them yours. Start with what you do this year, but put a policy attached to it so it doesn't look like you're trying to create this rainy day fund. You're creating reserves with logic to them attached to your policy.
And we
you're-
have drafts that we looked at and got kicked aside because we didn't want to do it. So we can resurface those to get that conversation.
Yeah, and I'm more than happy to hop in and give you many examples. Change your fiscal year. That's definitely gonna help you make better business decisions. And then I got a few legislators I'm talking to about getting away from March town meeting and kind of get into June too, so you can align that, better when all your big money, line items are coming. Go to multiple collections on property taxes, zeroed out. When you change your fiscal year, if you change your fiscal year, and I can talk to you about that, when you change your fiscal year, I start talking about multiple tax collection. Then just one, spread your cash flow out. That would help you immensely.
And theoretically, we'd have to do that anyway when we switch
Yes.
fiscal year to
Yeah.
a different fiscal
Yeah,
year.
and then the question is, you're gonna have a 6-month budget, 18-month budget, what are you gonna have? So,
To make the transition.
yeah.
So we'll start putting that together.
We
Maybe
can
have
help
Ron
you.
come back.
We can help you put all that together.
Yeah.
Don't reinvent the wheel. I got everything you need about doing that. So it truly isn't hard. And it's more of a public awareness thing of what you're gonna do and why you're gonna do it. And then these are the details that come with it, multiple tax rates. And some people say, and if you're gonna have some people say this, you're gonna have some people not. Some people are gonna get up and say, I'd rather pay you in smaller installments.
We got a lot of
Than
people.
coming up with one big check, okay?
Got a lot
That's a
of-
lot of people. My hometown, I just had this conversation up in Vermont, so people are gonna say that, and they're gonna let people say, nah, it really doesn't matter to me. Well, it matters to a lot of people, that don't have that one big check. When's your property taxes due? July, August,
September 15th.
September? One that big check in September, coming off summer vacations and things like that. I don't have that big check. So,
Well, if anybody wants to pay all at once can do that.
yeah, and exactly, if you wanna pay out,
Having multiple payments.
we will
doesn't mean-
gladly pay your money.
Yeah.
And some, I'm not recommending this to Chester, okay? Some municipalities offer discounts to pay early, spread out cash. You don't stay away from that for right now. Not saying not to talk about it, but stay away from that. You got some work to do. Discounts won't help you, okay? Might help your cash flow, won't help you there. What'll help your cash flow? get multiple collections. That'll help the cash flow. And then when you get that general fund balance policy, may I suggest you continue to keep doing with what you did this year and build a tax stabilization reserve into your future budgets so you can get to that 15 and 30 days. You need to do that. And it may require you raising your tax rates. Just telling you right now, it's that simple.
See how you could do it without.
When's the last time you had a reval in this town?
It
We
starts
do.
next year.
There you go.
It starts
That,
next year.
that will
That's
probably
the
not
answer.
hurt you.
Yeah.
That will probably not, that's when you really want to let these
We
pass.
get hammered from the state because our appraisals are so low
Yeah.
compared to the
I'm
fair
telling you,
market value.
that's gonna help
we're
you a lot. Well worth the cost of admission. And that, it's not gonna be cheap to do your reval. And I don't know what type of reval you're gonna do, but what do you got? We could, what, $200,000 or $300,000?
Yeah,
You're trying to
I
set
think it's
aside for that.
170,
Yeah,
yeah.
whatever it is, that's a good move for the town. You're hitting your reval, reset on your values.
Yeah.
So, and you need to do that. And then the collection policy for rescue billings, absolutely, just something, that you need to talk about to get there. And I know you're doing a lot of that work internally, right?
That's happening, right?
So those are my recommendations for your general fund, okay? And then the next recommendations are for the water and sewer funds. And you gotta look hard at those rates. There's zero doubt in my mind, you gotta look hard at that rate, those rates. I get it that you didn't want to raise rates during COVID. Well, guess what? Two things happened to you. You deferred that rate. You deferred a rate increase, okay? And the cost went up 400% on some of these for running water and wastewater. So you're using old money to pay for inflation. And it's not enough. So you gotta look hard at that rate. And may I suggest, don't hit them all with one rate increase in 1 year. Do it in steps. Every 2 years, I always say, water 1 year, wastewater the next year. Do it in steps, and then you can do it in 2 or 3 years for water, 2 or 3 years for wastewater. Alter it 2 years, stagger them.
Well, and that's what we've been doing. So over the past 2 years, we've been gradually increasing. And the other thing is, if you recall, we're working with Ashley Lucht, who, now that we have the new meters installed, now that we've had 3 full billings of the new meters, that's all been sent up to her. She is the one who's helping me look at rate restructure and establishing a capital plan for water sewer using the asset management plans that we had already created. So this is all
Yeah.
our water sewer stuff is already in.
I think you've been talking about it, now it's act.
Yeah.
It's now it's just really like formalizing your plan, okay? And don't expect it, no need to do it all in 1 year. Okay? This has been an evolution here. COVID was, COVID was what, almost 6 years ago, is what COVID was. A lot of things happened, and then we like to try to forget it. I'll tell you, it impacted a lot of schools and a lot of government, period, end of story. Because the money that they got for the schools that went up on those costs, that was coming in the form of ESSER grants, ARPA funds, same thing with the town, there as well. It allowed you to have some external, I call it artificial money coming in to do some things with, to mitigate these climbing costs, these inflation, these expanded services, these supplanting of revenues, that you did while you had to adjust how you ran town government, okay, or school government. So that gone 6 years ago, okay. But think about it. That was 6 years ago. Our rates haven't changed in water and waste. That's a problem. So, and then I think with so much infrastructure money out there available to government, you need absolutely more robust water and sewer capital plan. Zero doubt in my mind. I mean, $300,000, whatever it's going to be at the end of this year. That's not a lot of money in those two areas. And now you're adding a solar farm to your endeavors too. So.
There's no way to make money with a solar farm the way it is.
There's no way to make money in government at all, unless you have a if you got a beach, I can tell you, you can make some money. I just came from there last night, but I can also tell you, you're gonna take that money and you're gonna roll it into some other service that you're providing that isn't able to pay for itself. Yeah. Keep coming to Maine, okay? Keep going to your local beaches, because that's what's being used to subsidize some of these areas and these departments, for that don't have enough money to pay for it. So, and the dependency is going to be on your tax base to do it. So I think you got a lot of things in the hopper, you know, that really kind of confirm this conversation, but those are my talking points for you guys as of December 31st. I think you've been, nice thing is you've been talking about them. Now it's execution. Execution.
And then we have Peter's grouping of questions.
Yeah.
Do you have a copy of these, Ron?
I don't have a, I gotta put my glasses back
I'm
on.
sorry, you do.
Yeah.
You do.
So I'm gonna defer to Miss Deb on any of these.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, because I don't think, or do you all have, do you have a copy of the audit report up there?
Yeah, everybody should have a copy of the audit.
Okay. So let me put my glasses
Here,
back
you want
on.
mine?
What?
You want a copy of the audit?
Yeah, I'll take a copy of that. What are you gonna use?
Well, I'm not answering the questions, you are.
Okay, so I'm gonna go right down through these 1 through 13. Everybody has a copy of what I'm looking at? Page 13. There are tax receivables and taxes unpaid. What is the difference between the two? So I'm just gonna follow on. I'm gonna go to page 13 and tell you what I see. So I'm on page 13. And I'm looking on statement A. There are taxes receivable and taxes unpaid, okay? I don't see taxes unpaid anywhere in the verbiage on page 13. All right, so I don't understand the context of that question. I don't see that anywhere. I'm not sure what the intent is. But when I look at 13, the question is, there are taxes receivable and taxes unpaid. I see taxes receivable. I don't see taxes unpaid. I don't know. So he's not here.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
He's not here.
So I would want, that's my question.
He'll need to clarify.
Yeah,
Yep.
you need to clarify.
Yep.
I don't see what they're seeing.
Okay.
So page 2, comment 2, page 11. How did the land change in value from 400 to 1,200 to $1.2 million?
We did 2 FEMA buyouts in 2025, the 2 properties on Route 11 West.
Yeah.
And so those added to land value.
Did these questions come to you guys?
No, they did not. They came to me to give to the board, but not for us to answer.
Yeah. So now, how are capital values arrived at? On your financial statements, cost. That's it. We can't change that unless the cost goes down. We can't change it. Your insurance companies will probably value it at replacement cost. We don't. One of those standards, you know, that you talked about says lower cost or market for investments and things like that. Cost. That's how those values are. So when you go put $4.5 million into a public safety building, $4.5 million. That's how those are determined. Page 13 shows education is still owed $1.4 million out of $7 million collected. Okay. I'm not sure of the math on the 7 million collected because I know some of you didn't collect it all. I'm just not prepared to say how much of it you collected. Okay. But the questions are, is the town paying installments and using the education tax as a float? Yes. Yes. Zero doubt about it.
That's what happens.
Zero doubt. Julie and I talked about it. 1 or 2 things that you want to do about it. Exactly everything that we've talked about now. And you need to deal with that by June 30th. Reach out to the superintendent of your supervisory unit to negotiate another arrangement with them, or Cheryl. And I think we actually did that on the phone with Cheryl one time.
Well,
You know,
what we have already decided is to avoid this problem going forward. We're going back to our previous standard, which is we just make them whole on December 31st. We have to borrow a TAN anyway, make the school whole on 12/31. We no longer have this issue.
And that's a good neighbor because the statute actually allows you to pay them by June 30th.
Yeah, and that's where we try.
But it's
It's
creating
creating
issues.
these costs, it's creating like this deficit that was
Yeah.
talked about, that was part of that conversation, so.
It's creating.
So then it was worse.
Exactly.
It's creating conversation that can be avoided.
Right, and it doesn't stretch us enough to not have to borrow a TAN.
Yeah.
So,
What is the savings in interest handling it this way? Well, here's what I'm sure of. I don't think that there's any interest that the town's incurring on this. Matter of fact, the school's doing you a favor. So I'm not sure what that means, but to come up with that is meaning that, hey, we haven't collected these taxes and try to say, well, we owe the school $1.4 million. I wouldn't even have that math. And if you guys would like us to crunch it, we can talk about that, but we're going to charge it. So when are the installments due? That's simple. That's written in the law. 20 days from the collection of your taxes is the first piece of the law, okay? Unless you negotiate an agreement with the school. Okay, next piece, on unpaid taxes, which attaches itself to the A, and here's how I read that statute. If you don't, and you didn't collect all your taxes, 30 days from when you collect them, or by June 30th, the end of the fiscal year, is when you turn that money over to the
Which is
school.
what we do. Each month, we pay what we have, the percentage of the school that we have collected that month. That is typically what we have done. Not doing that anymore for 2026, that's practice of the past, but.
Fund balance accounting, is there anywhere that qualifies the interest saved by fund balance accounting? I have no idea what that means. I don't. So, no idea.
Oh,
And the
we-
person
yeah,
that
we
asked that
don't.
question,
We're not sure.
zero idea what even the context of that question is. So. Although there are more funds than water, sewer, and solar, yep, I get it. So those are three of them, okay? Are separating these three going to make a bigger difference? You don't have a choice. Those are the governmental accounting standards that we're talking about that says any non-governmental service that's separate, that's paid from other sources or uses of funds, non-property taxes, you're supposed to separate those. That's a standard. So again, our separating is going to make a bigger difference. I don't know, but you got no choice. So. In section C, D, and E. In section C, D, and E.
I think that means schedule.
Statement.
I mean, statement.
I think he means statement.
The fund balance for education shows no outstanding payments due to education. But on section C, there is the outstanding payment to education of 1.4. Okay. Well, statement D and E are, if that's what that means, statement D and E, D is the revenue and expense report. There wouldn't be any outstanding liability there because those are what you paid, and the timing difference is the two. So there's no liability there. That's on statement A of the $1 million. And E and F are other statements that I have no idea, the correlation between what you'd owe the school and the number on the balance sheet on statement C that says you owe the school or anybody else for that matter. So I am not sure, but I'm assuming in section C, D, and E, it means statement. And outstanding payments, that's on a balance sheet. That's what you owe. It's not what you paid. So that's clearly documented on your balance sheet. Page 30. There is a figure. Bear with me. There is a figure. Page 30. There is a figure for accounts receivable netted with allowance for uncollectible accounts. We're $1,706,610. I cannot find a matching number on the balance sheet. So if everybody can turn to statement A, page 13 of that audit report, I'll draw your attention to the about 5 or 6 numbers down, the $1,706,610. Has all the non-tax receivables and water and sewer in it. Everybody see where I'm getting that math? So I don't know what's general. So I'm finding it to answer the question. There it is. There it is. Page 41. Could the use of each loan be listed with this statement? Some are not, and that's the footnote with all your debt. If the town wants to put in more of, like, it was for a vehicle, it was for a backhoe, absolutely, we can detail that debt. Whether it's sewer, I don't know how much detail you want, but if the question is can we add some detail so we know what the purpose of that debt is for? Absolutely. So. So I got that one. Page 43, 2031 to 2035. So our debt has to be disclosed in 5-year increments. All right, so that's what that's telling me. What is the deferred debt that comes due? I do not see it clearly defined in the audit. Okay, what is the deferred debt that comes due? I don't know. That note is designed to say what your debt is and the amount of principal payments and interest payments that you're making in that 5-year duration of time. That's what that debt is for. So that's the purpose of that note. The deferred debt, or what's outstanding, is on the balance sheet on statement A and the footnotes, on those pages. So. Page 46 shows a general fund deficit of 3150. No, it doesn't. The general fund on that page is the only one that has a profit. That number in brackets is actually a profit as it goes back to statement C. So that's not a deficit. That's a profit. Anything in our accounting world that has brackets on it is a good thing when it comes to equity. It's the other numbers below that that are in the deficit situation. Page note 16. Page note 16.
I believe he meant page 46.
Page 46. Note 16. Expenditures over appropriation. The town was non-compliant with legally adopted budget, $333,000. Okay. Page 6. The town was non-compliant. Over expense. I don't know if this is a statement or a question, but yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we had a budget deficit. in
We had a budget
2025, we knew
deficit.
that.
I concur.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Page 56, a list of the projects are needed, page 56. Page 56, a list of the projects are needed. So I'm assuming that he's talking about note 20. Okay. If we put a list of every project that you had in there or every piece of asset you'd have, this thing would be 350 pages long. So it's designed to be showed in summary, and we could provide you guys with like supporting schedules and details. You should have all the information anyway, because you gave it to us. I don't know what that is, but detailed projects, that's not what that note is for. That note is for, like summary of what your assets are. Now, if he's asking for like a balance of capital project, we can provide him with that. Absolutely. That's actually in that note. If he's talking about the capital projects and those balances, there's a couple of places to find that in here. And on page, bear with me. On page 73, 74, and 75 is a list of all those capital projects. So there they are, like detailed. If he wants a list of all the actual assets within that project, that's not the purpose of that statement. That list is long. Page 70, Storm 2023 has listed charges on other sheets. None are shown. I don't know what that means. Okay. Page 70, you've got like 600 some odd $1,000 left to pay out for projects related to the 2023 storm.
The Christmas tree and the smoke share, 2 big box culverts. That money pays for those 2. They gave us the money ahead of time. It's mitigation work.
As far as the listed charges on other sheets, I don't know. I don't know what those listed charges are. So may I suggest, if he's not here, that you and Deb,
We can get more detail from him.
whatever you need from me, always glad to help.
Is that the list?
That is the entire list, and I am going to return all this to you.
Okay.
Because
And
I
I'll
feel
let
like
Peter
toting
know.
it
He can,
around.
yeah, I can let Peter know he can watch the recording.
Yeah. So any questions that I haven't answered or you can follow up, whoever follow up, I'm here to help. So.
What I get from this one is that somehow we have to build up some reserves. So to help out with cash flow and payment for all the projects and have something to fall back on.
Yeah. And I really feel you're not going to have the choice, and one of your details of doing that, you're going to have to raise your tax rate. No doubt. I'd argue that tax rate has been deferred. So
Well, we have worked to keep our tax rate as low as we
Hey,
can.
listen,
We
be
had
proud
that
of that.
discussion.
And that's your response. We tried as hard as we could. We can't do it anymore. We just can't simply afford this rate anymore. That's your answer.
Unless we cut services.
Unless you cut services, exactly.
And that's part of.
And that's a
it.
discussion that we are
That we're
involved.
getting ready to engage is each meeting will.
And
have
if
a-
they want to, if the constituents want to engage in what those services are, that's a conversation that probably should have been had for the past 4 or 5 years, because it's put you in this situation.
And we're doing workshops throughout the summer. That's.
And listen, if you want me to come to one of those workshops, because I'm spending a lot of time in July and August down here, love to come. Love to come.
Yeah.
So.
Well, anyone else have any questions, either behind the table or on that side? Yes, Sean?
There was one question that came up, and I'm supposing that what the question was the interest savings by using the fund balance rather than borrowing. If you go back to that question, I think that's what it sounded like to me.
What question is it?
Peter's question.
Yeah, what question?
The one about, I think it was the one where, if I understand it correctly, it's using the school money that comes
You
in.
clearly did that, but there's no way, I could even offer, what the interest savings were on that one,
That's
like
what I
right now.
figured,
I couldn't even
Just-
like touch it.
Sure.
Couldn't even touch it, but as I said, more than happy to. So,
Well, anytime that
you
we.
didn't pay any interest to them, so I can tell you that should have created savings for.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, anytime that we use money that's in the general fund to pay for things that aren't specifically for that, in anticipation of money later, then
Yeah.
we're saving a little bit of interest on it because we're not
Right.
taking out a big TAN note or something. But other than that, you have to pay for it eventually, no matter what.
Yeah. That's why I say you got some big decisions on your hands coming up in Chester. And the good news is I think you're talking about them. And when it comes time to put the public in a room and talking about this, tell me when. If I can make it, I will do everything I can. Like we planned this, I don't know, a while back. Just give me about 3 to 4 weeks fair warning, please.
Any other questions?
My only comment, Lee, is that this is not a new conversation. It sounds very familiar to a presentation several years ago with Mr. Smith. It's an old song, but when we get to where we need to raise the money and you go to town meeting and you're setting the budget, we always chicken out. And I remember that we had a budget where we actually determined the costs of operation where it really needed to be. And boy, that thing went down in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a lot of public outreach, a lot of information. There's got to be a big sell somehow in a
That's
way
the
that
hard
makes it
part.
understandable.
And that's the hard part, but that is the precise reason why we started this conversation at budget season, why we said we're going to do a deep dive into each of the services for the community to say, here is the service, here are the services,
Yeah.
here is what they cost.
Yeah.
If
So-
you want this to lower, what are you
Let's
cutting?
just keep that talking about it right now, because this is what you're gonna be up against. Public in a room, public saying, here's an option. You want that tax, you want us to create some reserves and not be broke? Here's our options, okay? Cut services. Which ones? Okay?
Right.
Because they're gonna want options. You with me? Still not gonna lower your tax rate. Not gonna lower your tax rate at all. It's gonna allow you to do some of the things now. So that's why I say, for years, you've been artificially running in place by not cutting services, keeping that tax rate. God love you all for keeping that tax rate. You can't do it anymore. You just can't do it anymore. So,
And the big problem is gonna be actually getting the word out and getting the community engaged, because, here we see non-town employees, we have 3 in the room.
yeah.
And hopefully this will be a message that will get out, people will watch the video, et cetera.
That's where the rubber meets the road. People are always interested in that. When you're talking about services, whatever that may be, recreation, kids, programs, things like that, that'll hit home.
Yeah, and that's where the conversation has started. So like Julie said, we're gonna be having workshops this summer and having that discussion. Bill?
I think the option of a quarterly billing, if you're gonna increase the tax rate, would really be a good service. I don't know how to explain it, but if you look at the general population of the town of Chester, you have an aged population, you have a fixed income population. So if you're gonna sell, pick in my pocket a little bit more, make it a quarter at a time instead of $1. May that best be the best way to explain that.
A lot of people think like that.
Absolutely,
Exactly.
I do.
absolutely.
It's funny, I go through Springfield from time to time and I see payment due, quarterly payment due, and I'm going, well, I could go home and, resurrect some more money and make a payment to the town of Chester. But nobody reaches in their pocket until they get the bill. And from the cash flow standpoint of the town, it would be extremely beneficial. So
If
I
people
just,
want to pay them all at once, let them go.
Okay.
right, go ahead.
Anybody who wants to pay it all at once can.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Particularly, I think increasing the tax rate is gonna be something that you have to deal with. I agree, we can't have all these services at once. You gotta pay for them. But we do need to do collection of cash a lot better than we currently are doing.
I
I
haven't,
think there's also a benefit to showing some concrete examples of things like the sidewalk.
absolutely,
If we did this,
Yeah.
when it was first suggested and we put it off, it would have cost this.
Yeah.
Here's how much more we're paying. I think about that every time I recently hear about what it's gonna cost to do renovations in the high school. I think about that bond.
Every day.
Failed by
Yeah.
43
so,
votes.
so hear me. And what I do to even bring more emphasis to exactly what you said, put your tax rate growth over the past 5 years. Your point made. The point will be made if you do those things side by each. Point's made.
It's gonna cost you. You can pay this now, or you can pay 3 times as much later,
Yeah.
or you can not have the things you want to have.
The other problem I see is that on the tax bills, the education tax and the municipal tax are mixed together.
Yeah.
And people see that number, and yes, most of our money is going toward the schools. And they don't quite get that separation, so they're a little bit horrified by the amount that school taxes are going up. And it would really help if that wasn't such a problem.
Any other questions?
Ron's got a bail.
We're on time. Okay.
But just to
Commitment?
expand on what he just said, perfect point on why you want to align the school budget with the town budget with fiscal years and move that budget closer to the end of the school year. You're all on the same team.
Right.
That's gonna help immensely.
Excellent.
I gotta run.
Ron, thank you very much. Appreciate your
Anytime, I'd
time.
love to come. Just
Okay.
let me know.
Let you know.
Any follow-up questions?
For all the positive news.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. At least we got a plan.
Good to see you.
Safe travels.
Thanks, Ron.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn this special select board meeting relative to the audit.
So moved.
So Lawrence made the motion. Arnie's a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. Our next meeting will start in exactly 13 minutes.
There you go. Stu, do you want to stop recording?
Sure.
Okay.
So Julie, I did
Okay, go ahead.
It's 6:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is our Water Commissioners meeting. And so we will start out with citizens' comments, since we did the Pledge of Allegiance earlier for the first meeting. So is anyone who would like to comment on something that is not on the agenda at this point? Okay, next is the reservoir dam analysis, and we have Dan Monette from Fuss O'Neill on the line. Dan, welcome. And
Hello.
I'm assuming we're just turning it over to him, or are we having a discussion first?
No, you don't need a discussion first. I put in your memo, basically Dan is gonna go over what his assessment, what he came up with. It would be ideal to anticipate making a decision tonight as to which alternative you would prefer. As I said in your memo, I have had a conversation with FEMA. It does look like whatever option we choose, well, the lowest option, the option with the least amount of money, they will fund. Let's be clear about that. If we choose a different option, that is the amount we would need to make up. But it looks like we could potentially get 100% funding for the option. So, which is great news, So, but they are on a timeline, we're on a timeline with them. So we will want to select our option as soon as we possibly can. So Dan, I'm gonna give it right over to you.
All right, sounds good. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. And everybody can see me if I'm
Yep.
on the screen? Good, good. My name is Dan Monette. I'm a engineer for Fuss O'Neill. I'm our dam practice leader. I lead a team of about 12 people at Fuss O'Neill in our water practice that focuses on dam reconstruction, dam repair, dam removals, any kind of water control structure or work in the water. I'm part of a larger company. We have about 450 people in the New England area, and we operate. We're a full service firm. But Julie came to us and requested a proposal, and we put together a proposal that brought this project up through our feasibility study, geotechnical analysis, survey. We did a hydrology and hydraulics analysis of the dam. And this is all related to reacting to some flooding. So back in 2023, the dam was overtopped and a huge section of the downstream embankment washed away downstream of the core wall. So the dam is an earthen dam, and it has a concrete core wall that comes all the way up to the surface or almost to the surface for the entire dam length. And over on dam right, which is facing downstream, there's a two-stage spillway that's made out of concrete. And that spillway we've found is undersized and inadequate to pass the design storm for a significant hazard dam. And through our report, we've gone through and we've analyzed the hazard class as well to determine if it's correct for the dam based on the downstream inundation area. Part of our efforts and part of Dam Safety's request was to update the emergency action plan for the dam, and that required new modeling and checking what the flooding would look like downstream during a sunny day failure or a storm event failure of the dam. So through our efforts, we've gone through and we've put together a couple different alternatives to meet the dam safety requirements. Dam Safety responded about July 19th, and they put together like a fast response report. And then they came out again on July 24th of 2023, and they put together a bunch of conditions. Basically, they said that the pond needs to remain in a drawn down state until it's improved or repaired in a sufficient manner. They wanted us to develop and update the EAP, which is the emergency action plan for the dam. They wanted the breach analysis. They wanted us to look at the alternatives to see if we could get the dam into a hydraulically adequate state, which means it can pass the design storm with the adequate freeboard. And freeboard means that there's enough space in the reservoir still below the dam crest so that it's not like licking the edge or coming up over the top of the dam. We need to have 1.5 feet of freeboard on the dam for a significant hazard dam. Another couple things that they asked for was an operations and maintenance plan, the geotechnical evaluation that I said earlier. We did a bunch of borings on the dam and some seepage analysis of the dam to look at stability, to make sure that what was there isn't going to slide or move or liquefy or anything like that during a large storm event. We also looked at the deteriorated concrete on the spillway portion and on the what we could see of the core wall that goes through the dam. And we also opened the outlet structure. There's two valves and two 8-inch pipes that were historically for fire protection down in the village and water down in the village. One of them is there's a valve in the bottom of the stream, which isn't that great if you're trying to activate it during a large storm or something like that. And we also noted that the two valves are so far down inside the chamber that you almost have to be unsafe in order to reach the valves with the key to turn the valves to access them. And the two pipes are inadequate anyways to try to pass the kind of flows that we're talking about during the storm. Um, so we came up with four different alternatives. We always have to look at the do nothing alternative. That's part of a alternatives analysis, but we know that's not going to work because dam safety's requesting that changes need to be made. So we had really three options that we want to bring to your attention and discuss tonight before we move ahead with further design and analysis. Those alternatives include full removal of the dam. Um, this option one, or option two, if you consider do nothing, option one, is to open up a adequate weir-shaped opening, something like a trapezoid shape in the dam, which would involve cutting the core wall, removing fill, and then restoring the channel from the reservoir to have the stream connect to the existing reservoir. The reservoir, as you know it now, would be completely gone, and there would be a like a stream thread in a wetland area up above. Um, every time we do a dam removal, there's considerations that we need to take as far as design goes. We need to look at the sediments that have been trapped behind the dam historically, make sure that they're not contaminated if we release them into the stream. Sometimes there's dredging, sometimes there's restoration plans that we need to do. We have to take into consideration habitat loss, any kind of historical components of the dam. And we also know that it's not your preferred option. You want to keep this as a recreation area, a cooling area for swimming, and I know there's some fishing derbies and stuff like that that happen on the reservoir. So it's a vital resource for the community. So would like to see if it could stay. Option three, which is our preferred option, was to lower and widen the existing two-stage spillway. And when I say two-stage, that means there's a lower section of it that activates, and then as the storm increases or the flow increases, there's a secondary higher spillway section that activates to provide additional capacity. In our case, both sections are in really bad shape. There's undermining of the concrete, large cracks, spalling, not adequate. It's in poor condition. But what we would propose in option three would be to lower that spillway elevation, probably up to about 3 feet, and widen it to about 25 feet wide. That would open it up so that we'd have enough hydraulic area so that we could pass the design storm that we're looking at with the required freeboard. A spillway of that size, 25 by 3, plus what was there before, would be made out of reinforced concrete, and it would tie into the bedrock that's on dam right. And it would also tie into the existing core wall. Our plan would be to cut the existing core wall back to provide that 25 feet that we need to widen it. And then option four, which would be to repair the spillway as is, keep it in like kind, just completely redo it with new reinforced concrete at the same elevation, same width, and then provide a big 8-foot diameter overflow pipe that goes through the spillway and connects into the stream. So this would be a large inlet structure inside the reservoir that would have a trash rack. Roof would have to be peaked on the trash rack to prevent woody debris and stuff like that from building up. And you'd have to be able to maintain and access it probably with a small catwalk, or if it was built into the embankment, it would be something that's half in the reservoir, half out in the dam embankment. And then the pipe itself would be either a really large round pipe, like a reinforced concrete pipe, or it would be a box culvert that had the proper sealing and stuff like that to meet engineering handbook requirements for a conduit through an earthen embankment, which is a pretty involved design process. any pipe of that size would need a concrete cradle. We would probably need some sort of diaphragm filter around the pipe and things like that to prevent sediment migration or piping failure around the conduit, which is always the weakest point in a dam. Out of those three options, other than the do nothing, we came up with some cost estimates for each one, and these are ballpark opinions of cost that have a contingency range because we're still so early in design. So basically, we have a concept, and we're just trying to come with a couple ideas of what the price range would be. The removal of the dam, complete removal of the dam, came in around 500,000 on our cost estimate. That would be design, permitting, and soliciting a contractor to do the work and then completing the work. To lower and widen the existing spillway, so the 3 foot lowered and 25 extra feet wider, the cost estimate for that came in around 450,000. Repairing the spillway and then adding the big box culvert or really large reinforced concrete pipe through the dam, that cost estimate came in around 630,000. I'm going to pause now if you have any questions.
Yeah, Peter Huckins, you call out a storm flow. Is that 100-year or a 200-year?
I'm sorry, was that towards me?
That was toward you, yes.
Yep.
Okay, so you've called out a storm flow, but you haven't identified whether, it's a 100-year or a 200-year flow.
So we looked at the 10, 25, 50, 100, and 1,000-year event. For a breach analysis, what we have to do is we have to look at the probable maximum flood, which may be somewhere in between the 100 and the 1,000-year for this dam. And that's what we have to design for. We have to design for that probable maximum flood. It's a little bit different than like a FEMA floodplain that you would normally see for flood modeling. With breach, we have to do a little bit higher standard. So with our emergency action plan for the dam, we're looking at that storm. So if you go to, let me see if I can find the page in my report. Flood routing. There's a table on page 5 that shows the different design storms and the precipitation depth in inches. The 100-year had about 7.7 inches of rainfall in 24 hours, which is what we look at for a storm event, which had an inflow of 437 cubic feet per second.
I'm curious, this is Tim speaking. As I recall, we got over 11 inches of rain from Irene here. So was that a 2,000-year flood?
So what Irene ended up being was a very localized storm event. So in the terms of what we look at intensity based on a single storm event over 24 hours. Irene lasted a lot longer than 24 hours, and it was a chain of rainstorms that happened over and over and over again, kind of like a chainsaw effect. So it's hard to classify where Irene would come in, but probably somewhere over 1,000-year. It may even be 2-3 times the 100-year event.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Dan, this is Lee Gustafson. Do you have any idea of what the reservoir would look like if it's lowered by 3 feet?
It would probably, have you been up there recently?
Not recently, no.
Okay. The reservoir is drawn down to about the inlet or elevation of that primary outlet pipe that goes through the dam. So it's drawn down about 6 feet currently. So if you go up there, you could take a look and see what that condition looks like. But it's way down on the reservoir. The reservoir isn't very deep. I think we talked about storage at its deepest point when it's full of being something like 8 to 12 feet.
So, is there any consideration if it's lowered by 3 feet, which is roughly 3 feet higher than it is now? Is there any consideration to how that would affect the aquatic life and or the vegetation, algae growth, et cetera, because it's a shallower water body?
So by saying that the spillway is lowered 3 feet doesn't mean that the water surface elevation would be lowered by 3 feet. We could control the water level with something called stop logs, which are boards that go across the spillway that are intended to break away during a larger event, but
Okay.
they hold the water at its current elevation.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
So the water in the dam, Dan, this is Arnie Janinas, the water in the dam would basically, with those boards that you're talking about, would be similar to what it was before all this. Does that give you enough of that freeboard above it or something, or does it still have to be a little lower?
It has to be 3 feet lower, and the boards would break away during that large event or be removed ahead of that large event to provide for that capacity that we're talking about. Some stop logs are made out of aluminum, and the dam monitor would have to pull them if they have a large storm coming that's in the forecast.
So with the boards in place, the height of the reservoir would be lower than traditionally it was?
It would be at its current or previous height. It would stay the same.
Whatever that was, for the higher one.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, so it wouldn't be 3 feet
Right.
shallower.
No.
You
The
got,
concrete in my spillway would be, but the
Right,
boards would be
okay.
higher. Yep.
The water level.
Thank
but
you.
the thing is, you're gonna have a failure every spring and you're gonna have to go back and put them back up again. That's the thing when you get into the stop log thing. Cause
Right.
they're designed to fail or somebody else. So there's a maintenance issue of going back and replacing them and fixing them all the time.
The boards, but not not what's holding the boards in place.
Well, the ones that I've been involved with, we usually use steel pipes because then you can just throw them away when you're done. Because they're designed to bend over when the water hits them.
I hear you, but basically the rest of it still stays in place
Right.
and it still does its job. You just have to replace that for that event.
Building in front of the dam.
It's like replacing the safety
Yeah.
thing, whatever blows out, then you have to replace it when everything's over again.
How difficult would it be to remove those boards ahead of a forecasted rain event?
So it really depends on the style of the stop log. A lot of them have eyelets in the top that you can grab with a hook and pull if they haven't swollen enough that they're impossible to pull out. Other ones you'd have to cut out depending on if they're wedged in there and they haven't been maintained in a long time. If they're loose enough and they don't swell and seal themselves in, they can be easily pulled out with a hook one at a time. But it's time consuming. You have to wait for the water level to go down after each pull in order to be able to pull the next one.
So it's a series of what's the height of each stop log?
It varies. Sometimes they're 8 inches, sometimes they're 12 inches, depending on what kind of boards you use.
So it's pretty time consuming to do that.
And
It also depends on the size of the reservoir, which you don't have a very large reservoir here that would have to take a long time to drain. So
and what's the width of that opening or the length of the stop log?
it would depend on our design. So we'll go through that with our hydraulic model. We know it needs to be about 25 feet wider than what's currently there, but it may end up being like a 2-stage like you have currently, where the deepest section has the stop logs, and that might be a narrow piece that's only 4 to 5 feet wide, and then there may be a conventional open spillway on the other half of it.
Okay.
And Jeff Holden's the water superintendent, and I'm usually the one that keeps an eye on things up there, and I go up 3 to 4 times a week and kind of monitor the level with that valve that's in the brook. Would that valve still be in use or a valve like it? Because that actually regulated it quite a bit. If I opened it right up, it regulated it quite a bit more than I thought, but it's.
Yep. Yeah, we can talk about ways that we can maintain that 8-inch pipe. There may be some improvements that we need to do to the structure that's there to make sure that it doesn't cave in. I noticed it had a huge dent on the upstream side when we were there. And there may be a better way to access it. We may be able to put a valve extension or something like that on there that brings it up so you're not leaning into that open structure and creating a safety risk.
Yeah, there's actually 3 valves in there, and there's one right down in the brook, and that's the one I've been using to to monitor it and, keep regulating it. If we're getting a lot of rain, I open it up. And it's been staying down pretty good. One thing I will say during the 23 flood, when it overtopped and it exposed a lot of that core wall, I was impressed by how good a shape it really was in. And I talked to Julie about this, that I didn't think, putting a standpipe in there, cutting a hole through that or messing with that at all would be productive. I like the idea of the wider, deeper spillways that we can control with the logs and stuff, so. But I thought the core wall was in pretty good shape. It wasn't tipping, it wasn't undermined. And you didn't, a lot of them, when they have rebar in them, you'll see rust spots coming through the concrete. I didn't see any of that. And I'd say about half it was exposed after it was washed out there, so.
So I had another question, Jeff, maybe you can answer that. Was that earthen part of the dam, was that clay or was that just?
No, there was some larger stones towards the bottom of the wall and there was mostly gravel.
Okay.
And I don't know what the size was, but you can see some of it. They have 3/4 inch, inch and a half stone on the front of it. That was from a previous washout where they just put the stone in there. They thought the stone would stay better, but I didn't agree with that. It should have been earthen with vegetation on there to help hold it.
Right, yeah. Okay.
The core wall's main purpose in a dam is not structural. It's not meant to support the dam in any way. That's what the earth is for. The core wall is there to control seepage through the earthen dam and make sure that it's got a longer seepage path to prevent any kind of piping failure. You were lucky that it didn't go to, and having that material on the downstream side of it to support it is what it needed. So.
Yeah, I've never seen a lot of seepage coming out of the front of that dam in all my years I've been around it, so.
So at this point, Dan, you're looking for us to make a decision to give you guidance as to which direction we would like you to go. And does anyone on the board or in the room have any comments or thoughts on direction?
I have some questions about these cost estimates, because I'm probably not understanding what I'm reading here.
Sure.
When you see excavation at $30, what is that? That can't be per hour.
Which one are you looking at?
No, it's per cubic yard.
Per
So if
cubic
you
yard, okay.
envision a 9x9x9 or a 3x3x3 box, 9x9 would be square yard, but 3x3x3 box of soil, every cubic yard of common excavation, it includes hauling, excavation, labor, and then overhead and profit for a contractor.
So are these means numbers or you actually have actual?
It's a mix. So I've got bids that we've gone through for dam removals. And then I've also got RS means for a double check. RS means historically comes in low. And our job here is to try to prepare you for what the construction costs might be in the future so that you can properly fund this.
Okay.
So you feel confident about these estimates based upon pricing today or pricing a year from now, or what? How are you looking at that?
These are priced for today. If we add in escalation, that's what our contingency's for. So if you look at the bottom, we've got a contingency of about 50%. And these are very, very preliminary. Like I said, we haven't done design yet. So we came up with alternatives, and then we came up with an idea of what those costs of those alternatives would be. But we don't have itemized information to put pricing to yet.
So that for alternative 3, the construction engineering cost, that's for your design work, or is that on-site construction engineering?
That is for on-site construction engineering.
Okay. So your design work is not included in this number?
We're already under contract for design work.
That's already being paid in the first round of FEMA money.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
So, when we talked about this a little bit the last time, we had discussed the possibility of getting some input from people about how much use it gets for recreation. However, looking at numbers, at least for me, and you may feel the same or feel differently, that when we have an option that allows us to maintain it as a reservoir that is less than it will cost us to remove the entire dam, at least for me, that at this point removes the removal of the entire dam from the consideration. And I'm now thinking about which of the other options. And I wanted to ask, am I missing something? Because we had talked before about wanting more input from people. It seems to me, though, that with the actual numbers attached to it, that if removing it is going to cost more than potentially it would cost to keep it, I'm not sure why we're still considering that.
Well, that would be my assessment also, just based on the numbers and what we get out of it. It seems almost a no-brainer decision to make, and that would be to go with alternative 3, because we keep the reservoir for its recreational value and whatever water use value, and it's less money, so.
Right. Well, and FEMA's paying for it.
Right.
And FEMA's paying for it, yes.
Well, that was the issue when it all started, was FEMA would only pay for the removal. That was my understanding anyway, but as long as, if they're gonna help us and pay for it, I'm all for keeping it.
Yeah, well, and
It's an asset to the town.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
certainly,
I mean, I go up there, like I said, at least 3 times a week, and it's surprisingly when the sun's coming up. Before they did their fishing derby, I was seeing some big bass in there.
I caught it
Yeah,
close
and
to 5 pounds.
I know a bunch of people have been catching the bass, catch and release, and they
it
seem-
is heavily used.
Mhm.
It
but
is
if we
a heavily
did
used facility.
take the dam out, then those fish would be a lot easier to harvest.
Only one-time thing though.
Well,
It just
it
seems to
sounds
me
like-
that we were able to, without a whole lot of conversation, go from 4 options to 2. So,
And just to clarify, what you told us is that FEMA, because this would be a continuation of the repair from the flooding,
Mhm.
that it would be eligible for FEMA funding.
Correct, correct.
And
So what'll happen? Were you gonna say more?
Well, I was
Did I
gonna
cut
say
you off?
just-
I'm sorry.
No, I just want to make sure that if we move in that direction, that we don't get blindsided.
Correct. So what will happen on any of these options? What will happen is, the 2 things. I had a squirrel moment there. What will happen with these options is I will submit, when Dan is done and has fully worked out, so if you're selecting alternative 3, it's gonna go back to Dan. Dan is then gonna build this out a little bit more. That's gonna get submitted to FEMA. I have to submit what's called a scope change. That gets reviewed, but what I'm being told by our district coordinator for FEMA is that this is very much an eligible expense. I will need to provide further justification if you choose an option that is not the least expensive and you're asking for more than the least amount. If you're wanting to go with option 4, which is another 120,000 more, then we would need to provide justification, and it would be possible that that would be our expense. But he felt very confident that a scope change would get approved, because when we initially wrote the project, we wrote it as temporary. That it was a temporary fix, not a permanent fix. We gave ourselves room.
When we're talking about FEMA money and they're very confident, usually I would be confident that that would happen, but when I hear FEMA now and financing and stuff, it worries me a little bit about what goes on with FEMA and the cuts that there have been. So before anything happens, it has to be guaranteed that it's going to be covered, I would assume.
Correct. And the 2023 storm is covered.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they can speak with confidence.
So Dan, this is Lee. I had another question for you. As you, assuming that we ask you to move forward with alternative 3, as you go through and refine your numbers, I'm assuming that the actual parts of this that you've put quantities to and unit prices to, those will change, but also as your numbers get more clear, the contingency number would go down a bit.
Correct. Yep.
But you're saying at this point, what you can see, it's 450,000. When you come back, it may be 425 or 475. But
Correct.
will be
Yeah,
much
we'd
better
fine tune.
numbers.
It may go higher or lower depending on our design. But this is what we have right now with the idea of lowering it 3 feet and then widening it 25.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
One thing to note is that in a parallel effort, we're in communications with dam safety. We have submitted our H&H report, our geotech report, this alternatives analysis for their review. I heard from Steve today, and he said he's still reviewing it, but he wants to set up a meeting once he's done to go through our findings and decide whether or not they agree with our H&H results. So that'll be upcoming. The other thing to note is you'll have a dam still if you repair a dam, so you will have maintenance yearly. The design life of what we're doing, maybe 50 to 80 years. So in that time, you'll have to do another repair plan or some more work to the dam, depending on what condition it's in. So it's an ongoing expense for the town. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that was clear.
Right. So based on your conversation with dam safety, is there any concern that you have that they may not approve of your analysis?
No, what usually happens is they ask a couple questions about our rainfall, or sometimes we use NOAA, sometimes we use type 3 distribution. So they may have some tweaks like that, but it shouldn't change anything significantly.
Okay.
And then Dan, once the board gives you the alternative that they choose, how long until you get that preliminary engineering done? The design?
Preliminary engineering we could probably have done in like 2 months.
Okay, so that would give me what I need for design for FEMA and final cost.
Yeah, FEMA's usually looking for something like a 30% design for their applications. Yeah.
Okay. So a couple months, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing to note, Julie, is that when we wrote our proposal for you, permitting was not included in that proposal, right? I think we stopped short at design. So
I think we did. Yep.
yeah. So there will be a wetland permit and a dam safety permit.
Okay, but design was included in that contract.
Correct.
Correct. Right. Okay.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board? Do we need a motion?
I would give me a motion. That would be great. I'd love it.
No, I'd make a motion that we move forwards with alternative 3.
I'll second that.
So Lauren made the motion, Tim seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving alternative 3 for the new lowered widened concrete spillway for an estimated project cost of $450,000, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Excellent, thank you. Dan, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to getting your final numbers.
Great to meet you. Any follow-up questions, Julie can send me an email, but I'm happy to chat anytime.
Excellent.
Thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
I will also entertain a motion to adjourn this water commissioners meeting.
So moved.
Tim's made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Arnie's a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. So now we are at our second special select board meeting. And this is, first off, does anybody need a break, by the way? So then the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the May 2026 select board.
Move to approve the minutes for May 2026 select board meeting.
Second.
So Tim's made the motion and Lauren's made the second. Any concerns, questions, changes, modifications?
I have none.
Okay. Well, honestly, I didn't look at it close enough, so. All in favor of the meeting minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Excellent. Next is citizens' comments. Does anyone have a comment to make on anything that is not on tonight's agenda? All right, old business. Julie, if you could take us through your memo.
Sure. There's only a few things. Sewer project, just quick update. Gravity line is obviously happening on Depot Street. If you've driven anywhere on Depot Street, you know the project is underway.
So how much bedrock are we going to?
They've gotten through the ledge. We're finally through the ledge. Smooth sailing from here on out.
Kirby told me he took all the ledge and is gonna crush it.
Yes, exactly,
Smart.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Out of the ground, let's use it,
Happen,
yeah.
Well, your description of running fairly smoothly.
Smoothly. Yeah, yeah. This is a big project, huge project. We've hit hurdles along the way. We've navigated them. The Force Main project on First Avenue is just about reached final completion, so we'll be doing the punch list walkthrough on that in then probably the next week. And the First Avenue, I'm sorry, yeah, the pump station project, contract 2, was scheduled to start on the 8th. That's had a slight delay. We want to get this project a little bit further along before we get that one going. So that one will be starting probably next week or two. So that one's underway. Just the bike ped grant application has been submitted for the sidewalk picking up at the bridge going all the way up to Dalrymple Street. Just kind of public service announcement, next week, the town hall office is closed. There is training on Monday and Tuesday for the ladies in the front. And then the rest of the week, we will all be here. We are going to be doing a bunch of retention work that is long overdue. We've set a new internal policy procedure about doing retention work annually, likely in June. We need to
that actually mean?
show the retention work. So yeah, throwing stuff away.
Oh, okay.
So we have, there's a whole retention schedule that the state has and it's all made up of all different kinds of statutes about what documents have to be kept certain amounts of time. A number of years ago, we went through the basement and cleaned out. We said then we would annually go through and clean out. We haven't. So we need to do that again. Take our retention list, go downstairs, go through. Where also I need to go through grant files. There's just a lot of stuff and it's hard. You can't get to it when the office is open. So June is a relatively slow time for the staff. We certainly don't want to do it after tax bills are sent. So it's a good time for us to just close the office, go through all that stuff. And the other important reason is if you have those documents available, they are subject to public records requests. So attorneys are really encouraging towns, keep up on your retention, keep up on your retention. It just helps limit the amount of documentation that you then have to make available.
Signed
and make available.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how does that work? If you throw it away and it means you don't have to make it available, or are there time frames for
So
things?
that's your retention schedules. So your retention schedules
and there's a
say
certain
you
date-
have to keep your financial records for 5
7,
years.
okay.
Some things are 5 years, some things are 7. Grants are typically 10 or beyond. If they're federal, they're longer. If they're state, they're shorter. So there's all these retention schedules set forth in statute. So we go through personnel policy records have a life to them, all those types of things.
And we don't want to scan them.
Not hundreds of years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
think so, but
I mean,
I just was curious. if
right.
that was,
Right. I mean, there are things that I keep longer. I probably will not throw any of my grant files away because I actually go back and look at them sometimes. So, but there's a lot of stuff that we just don't. There's a lot of stuff you don't need. We have an accounting system. I don't need copies of every invoice from 2000 or from 1995, right? I don't need those. We have an accounting system that can reproduce all of that, but we don't need to keep the physical copies. So
okay.
so just kind of a public service announcement.
That's separate from like historic records.
Oh, yeah, nothing in the vault gets touched. That all stays. These are these truly are
Transactional.
copies of bills. It's that kind of stuff. It's that kind of stuff. Yeah.
How is the mechanical work on the town hall going along, the electric upstairs and all the other parts?
Yep. KJ Electric, Steve gave an update on that today during our department head meeting. KJ Electric, I think, is slated for next week. And that will be finished. He's going, once this is done, he will then be going to the academy building because the MERP grant is funding upgrading the academy to phase 3. So he'll be going over to do that next. Yes. So the next week or two, it'll be finished. That's that. And then just again, FYI, June 30th, we have 3 properties going to tax sale. June 30th, 11 here at Town Hall. That's it for me.
It'll be upstairs here?
It will be downstairs.
So those are typically well attended or just a handful?
Typically they are. The tax sale process has changed significantly over the past 2 years. It's a lot harder to put properties up for tax sale. They have to be 2 years delinquent before we used to do them much quicker. We can't now, and you have to give so many options for payment arrangements. They get so many opportunities to fail in their payment arrangement before you can put them up for tax sale. There's a whole process that changed in statute 2 years ago. So that is one of the reasons why our delinquent balance is higher than normal, is because we can't do what we used to do.
A lot of those changes we were doing anyways, as far
Correct.
as providing,
Correct, but what's
cleanup
now
plans.
required is you have to wait a longer period of time before you can actually put them to sale. I will say that most of our properties, if they're, other than the 3 that are going up for tax sale, everybody is in a payment arrangement. Nobody's sitting there idle. The only ones that are sitting idle are those that maybe have 1 year delinquent. September 15th of this year, if they don't pay 2026 taxes, I can start the tax sale process.
Is that
So
number,
most everybody has an arrangement.
is that number around 400, 500,000 for delinquent taxes?
It's about 400, a little over 400. Yeah, it made a big impact on municipalities when we couldn't sell as quickly or even threaten sale.
Well, that's part of
we
the
used
cash
to.
flow thing that Ron was talking about.
Absolutely it is.
That's a
Absolutely.
lot
it
of
is.
money.
And the same thing goes for water sewer.
So how
We
long
tied our
is,
hands.
how long is the process for putting something up for tax sale?
So we have to so you have to first send a letter, a 30-day, you first have to send a letter offering a payment arrangement. If they don't respond to that, within like 30 days.
Okay.
So if they don't respond to that, or, fail, or you set up a payment arrangement and they fail on the arrangement, then you can go to step 2. You have to send what we call a 30-day notice. We're putting you on tax sale. It's another opportunity, payment arrangement, or to pay in full. At that 30 days, then we can start an actual tax sale, which requires us to do 1 owner title searches, prepare the documents. That has to be published 3 consecutive weeks, no sooner than 10 days before the tax sale. You have to provide service via certified mail return receipt requested. If we can't find them, we have to have Jeff as constable go serve. So from the time you start to the time you end, you're usually about 4 months in, and then you can have the tax sale. It's a process.
So what happens if the owner sells it to somebody else?
If they sell, then the taxes will be paid at sale.
Oh, okay,
At sale.
yeah.
At the closing.
At the
Right.
closing. If there's a bank, if that property's got a mortgage, we notify the bank, because often the bank will step in and pay. We try to do that as much as we can. So it's a process now. It is not, we cannot sell it as quickly as we used to. No.
Okay, anything else under old business? Next is a vendor permit application for Nan Stop. And you should have an application in front of you. Looks like Billy is looking to set up at Town Rec Pool Area intersection of Flamstead and Depot Street, weather and schedule dependent.
I was hoping that they were going to be here.
I saw her drive by earlier on in the bus. And I have to tell you, I have met Billy before and her food is very good.
And she's a really nice lady.
Yes.
Not that that plays into the fact. Either of those things.
These are a couple locations that we found no harm in. There was initially a discussion about, could she be on the green? I asked her to kind of take that out for now. I don't want, just because her menu is very similar to the businesses that are already on the green. So she was absolutely no problem with that. So I think the Pinnacle and down here is a good location to start for setup.
Sure.
It's another food option, and I
So
welcome it.
you have a couple of questions. One would be for Billy, but maybe this one's for you. And I know there is some language in the zoning statutes about how long or how many days a food truck vendor can be in one location? I don't know if it's over, I can't recall if it's.
I think
over-
that's if it's on private property. These are public property locations.
That only applies to private property?
Correct, because otherwise, if they're over a certain period of time, they have to get a conditional use permit.
Right, because then they would be a restaurant.
Correct.
basically.
Correct.
And that's the only aspect of that, and
I believe so. I can confirm. I can confirm that for you, but that's my understanding. This was originally submitted to Hugh. Hugh
so
Quinn,
he saw it.
he has
then.
seen it and blessed it and done
Rubber
his thing.
stamped it.
Yep.
Okay, that's good enough for me then.
Do we need a motion or just gonna
You
sign?
need, I would do a motion and I would sign. I would do
Okay.
that.
Do we, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do you want to make a motion? Or do you have another?
No, sure.
comment?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the vendor permit application of Jamie Lambden for her non-stop food cart.
I'll second that.
Okay, so Arnie's made the motion and Tim seconded. Any further discussion?
So does the town have any policies when it's on town property? I mean, we talk about use of town property and all the policies that we might do or not do. Do we have anything about how long it could be there or which properties or not properties and that kind of thing? Or is that just decided on a
It's really decided on a case by
on a
case.
basis
Yeah.
as it's
Yeah.
requested?
You probably should have a policy, but yeah.
And so is this for the whole year, the whole summer?
She kind of says, I believe this is summer. It wouldn't be conducive to winter. So I think she is talking summer months. And just kind of when the weather is good. That is one thing that is very vague, and I don't know that we're comfortable with the
Right, that-
vagueness of that.
That was my second question for her.
Correct.
How many days?
That's why I was
is
kind of
this?
hoping she was gonna be here.
Well, once we do approve something like this, what's gonna stop someone else from coming and saying, I'd like to put another truck right next to this one?
Nothing. They will come in with a vendor permit application and you will have
we
that
would have
conversation.
we'd have to approve it.
Not
No,
necessarily.
because now you're approving having two in that place. So you're setting a precedence to say,
Well-
okay to one, does not mean we're agreeing to put two or three or four.
Well, how about a different location then in town?
Well, maybe.
Then
That would be
maybe,
interesting.
except it's a different
And
location.
each
which
one
means-
is gonna be,
Yeah,
which is why I go
Case
back
by
to the
case.
point that maybe a policy or something.
Oh,
would
I
be- would
agreed that
help,
we should establish a
because we're
policy.
opening up a door
Yes.
here that
Yes.
we don't know what's
Agreed
gonna
on the
happen.
policy.
So we are going to be talking about use of town property eventually,
We are.
someday.
I've had a conversation. It's
And,
coming.
okay, and
We'll have it in the next
this,
couple
this will be, will need to be a part of that.
I would have a standalone vendor application process.
For this, yeah.
For just vendor permits. I would have a
Keep it
standalone.
separate.
I would have a standalone.
Well, the thing is, we've already kind of called out a permit for
Should
down
write
the
down
road.
this.
And we said, tell us how many days and how often you're
Right.
gonna do it. And I think it's for, and if that's what we do for people on private property, I think we should be doing the same thing for the town property. You should be saying, you know, how many days do you think you're gonna be there? I mean, it's, as you say, if she was here, there'd be all questions that we could satisfy.
It's a little open-ended for me.
So you meet again on the 1st.
Yep.
So you could,
Tell her to come in.
right, I can,
Something must have come up, because I'm surprised she's not here.
yeah.
we can just delay it.
The weather schedule dependent, I mean, you know, it's a food truck, they're not gonna be out there in a blizzard. But I absolutely agree, we have set a precedent that we expect to have something other than just whenever I feel like it, as the times that people have this out there.
Right.
And weather schedule dependent, not really quite enough. The other thing I was going to say is nonstop. It's non-bread, not nan bread, nonstop.
Okay.
Nonstop, non-bread.
Yes,
So-
it's using non-bread.
So the other option is that we could amend this to say through July 31st or August 31st or something that
You could amend it to give it a time.
that sets a time limit, or we just ask her to come in, next meeting.
I don't know her and don't know whether if we give permission and say we're giving permission to do this through, September 1st, whether that is more helpful for her business than were we to say, no, you have to come back a month from now and you're not allowed to do it until then.
Yeah, it'd be, I hear what you're saying. She's anxious to get started with her business. I also hear what Peter's saying, and this looks really open-ended to me, that she could be there. If we approve this as it's written, she could be there 7 days a week.
Not if we approve it through July 1st or through
Well,
August.
I think what Tim's saying is she could be there parked 7 days a week until
No,
the
absolutely, she
deadline.
could be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or you can limit it and say you can have 4 days a week through September 1st. Or you can bring her back in on July 1st, whatever you guys want.
Well, we could improve her till July 1st and say, well, we expect to see you.
We could do that also. I don't know, what's the pleasure of the board?
July 1st is only.
Is that when we're meeting then?
July 1st is your next meeting.
So we'll have room for this to be on the agenda then?
Yeah. Because this is,
Then I like the sounds of that. I think,
Okay.
have her come back for July
Mhm.
1st, have her fine tune this
Yep,
to do number of days per week
yep,
and length of time, how
yep.
many months. Okay.
So I have a little bit of a question about limiting the number of days per week. Because do we limit other businesses' operation times in the town if they have a brick and mortar? And so.
That's brick and mortar though.
Yeah, but I
they're
understand
not on
that
town property.
they're not on town property, but the point is there a reason for us to limit the amount of time that she can set up her truck? Other than we don't want it sitting there on cement blocks for 2 years. Maybe there's something that we could ask for that says, if you're gonna be more than 4 days a week, we'd like to know. And we'd like you to move every week to a different location in town between these two. So it's not just an eyesore, and I'm not, sorry, that was the wrong word. It's not just sitting there for the summer, but it moves around, the bus moves around or whatever to allow other people to take advantage of.
So we could, yeah, and these are all things we can talk with her about,
Right.
Consecutive days in one place or,
Well,
maximum
I
days per
think
week.
we should have this conversation now while we're talking about it, so that when she comes, we're not saying, oh, we want 4 days a week and she wants 7. Go
I'd
ahead.
also
Lauren.
say some of the not wanting, some of the things that were proposed before to be completely open-ended. Because they involved people making a great deal of noise outside.
They were different
And,
permits.
and a permit that says you're going to have unidentified loud music and light shows happening outside of your establishment 365 days a year during any of your opening hours. Sounds a little different to me than I'm gonna sell
Food.
food from my non-food. I'm gonna sell non-bread, which is so wonderful. So I'm delighted to have somebody sell it. That they're going to sell this in a location that is not involving also having alcohol and light shows and music. I'm not sure why we would want to say no more than X number of days a week. I'd be more concerned about no earlier than, whatever,
later than
or no earlier
hours
than
of
7
operation.
a.m., no later than whatever it is, so that you don't have somebody out there,
Well, the other,
2 o'clock in the morning,
yeah, but the other thing is,
riotously selling non-bread.
yeah, if you're doing a food truck, right? The object of a food truck is it's mobile.
Yeah.
So you take the food truck home with you. I mean, so you can go down and have the food truck and leave it at the corner of Flamstead and Depot Street for the summer. If you're open, you can have the food truck there. I mean, I've never seen a permit in the places that I've been familiar with. They allowed the food truck to stay there.
Yeah.
If you're out on public property, you can be out in the street, but that's fine. But then, end of the day, it's not there.
Yeah.
And that's a question I don't know the answer to, whether she's gonna do that. My guess is you're correct, that she's gonna park there, open up the doors, put the awning out, and then people are gonna come, and then she's gonna take the bus home. So, but we don't know, based on what information we have, we don't know if that's the case.
So what happens is, are we talking about this specific permit? Or are we talking about a policy or rules or regulations for all food trucks?
Well, I think,
Because if we're talking about the food trucks in general, all of them, then it has to be a warrant item. So other businesses in town could, offer their
Right.
input onto what we're going to decide upon.
Well, right now, we're talking about this
One
one,
permit.
but we're kind of flowing over into the other point. And you make a good point. I guess what I'm saying is that I don't necessarily want to limit Billy to certain number of hours, certain number of days, certain location, if this is her way of making money, of feeding her family. I think that we could be a little gracious at this point and say, okay, you can operate for the next 15 days under these conditions, but we want you to come in and tell us more detail. That way she has 15 days to kind of get her feet under her, and then we could ask her the questions and renew the permit application, so to speak, unless you guys have an issue with that.
So we need to amend the motion to make this a temporary approval?
Or we could just vote the motion down and start over, whatever. I mean, you guys
Either
made the
one,
motion,
It's gotta change, though.
Right,
To
yes.
do what you're suggesting.
yeah.
Am I allowed to withdraw it?
Yeah.
He's got some comment if you'd like.
Well, we're still discussing.
Yeah.
Public comment.
Yeah, so you'd have to withdraw, and then you'd have to unsecond.
Okay.
The other
Chuck,
thing I haven't heard, that I would normally think of with a business is, down here on the corner, what's the parking situation?
It would have to park on, it would have to be parking on First Avenue. Like First, so First Avenue extends across the street over to Flamstead over that bridge. That's
Yeah,
actually First
yeah.
Avenue as well.
Okay,
You mean for customers,
yeah,
not for the
Yeah.
truck.
yeah, and that's a good point.
because there's open
Yeah.
fields there that,
Exactly.
that don't belong to the town. There's one open field doesn't belong to the town.
Correct.
Yeah, she's gonna be on the town property.
Yeah, so parking would need to make sure it stays on the town property, I
Yeah.
think is. And I will be honest. Well, sorry, I wasn't really prepared for this discussion. Apparently, because we can't have her selling down there, we're gonna be doing a pump station
Yeah.
this summer.
Might be smelly.
They're gonna rip up that whole area.
That whole area is gonna be ripped out.
So
We
it needs to
cannot
be
have
somewhere
her
else
down there.
anyway.
Could it be
can't-
on the,
We
on
can't have
the
her doing that.
little triangle
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, absolutely. But
Is there
yeah,
what-
it can't be down there.
Yeah.
And we do have an ordinance. It's dated 1992. So it's a smidge old.
Not food trucks?
No, it's not about food trucks. It's about peddlers, solicitors, and transient merchants or itinerant vendors. But it is an ordinance to regulate.
Derogatory.
Exactly.
Those itinerants.
Itinerant vendors. An ordinance to regulate street vending, peddling, soliciting, and other commercial activities on public property. So this doesn't, it doesn't say anything. I just read it.
Doesn't say
It
anything?
doesn't say much of any value to this conversation, so we will absolutely need to redo it. But it basically just said, it defines a peddler, a solicitor, or any transient merchant.
Carpetbaggers in there?
Basically. It gives some exceptions. It gives some exceptions about events, nonprofit organizations. No time shall any such activity impede pedestrian traffic. I mean, some of that kind of stuff. Such activity must be itinerant in nature and at no time should be permitted to park permanently or temporarily in any designated no parking zone.
It means you
Can't
can never
park.
park.
In a
You
no
gotta be
parking-
moving, so I hope you can run.
In a no parking zone,
I
the last few words.
All the words matter.
Any sale or transaction must be conducted within the vehicle. At no time may any human or sound producing device. And at no time may any human or sound producing device in connection with such activity create a nuisance to the surrounding area, especially in a residential
Loud
zone.
music.
And then it says, exactly, I think that must be what it is, yeah. So then it just says you gotta have a permit, to be filed with me, name, telephone number, nature, yeah. Official action on the permit just gives the process of that, comes before you guys, and then there's enforcement. So it doesn't give like how many days, because this is not anticipating that they're parking. This is talking about people selling from their vehicles, driving door to door.
Which is the assumption, but it's also the assumption of what he's doing.
Right.
She's driving her truck, she's gonna go,
Right.
she's selling, and
Right.
then she's driving her truck away.
Exactly.
So it's not a permanent permanent location
Right,
anywhere.
right. So we have a base, which Jim will eat this up. I mean, this is gonna be redlined and we're gonna start over probably.
But I'd be content with the, whatever the location is that could be made available to her
Sure.
between now and July 1st. To let her do that and come in, and then we can go through restrictions after July 1st.
I agree. I think that's a good plan.
I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay, so now, do we need to amend this, or are we just amending
Now,
the motion to say until July? Do we
No,
want to
I
give her,
withdrew it all together, so just needed.
right, no, but I mean the
Well,
form.
Are we gonna edit her form? Is that what we're talking about now?
That was the question that I
Yeah,
raised, yeah.
So we can't approve her at Flamstead and Depot.
Right.
Correct.
And was that the only location?
No, she had the town rec.
So can we strike that and add, gosh, I wish she was here.
Well, yeah, we're too, kind of,
Yeah, we're doing more
We're in
than
the
we
weeds
should.
here a little bit.
yeah, we need to get her in here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know we want to help her
So,
out, but it may just be better to know.
Well,
Can we-
I-
Can we approve for at least for the rec
Yeah.
area? Let's say just strike one. I don't think it's right for us to add anything to her.
I would agree
yeah.
with that.
Okay,
Can we approve it to approve this, striking the intersection of Clemstead and Depot Street between now and July 1st and
Through July
through
1st.
July 1st?
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
that is a good motion,
I'll
excellent.
second.
All right, so Lawrence made the motion, Tim's made a second. Any further discussion on this?
So we gotta work on a policy.
We do, yes, and we can expect to have this discussion again.
So you're not asking for the policy to be completed by July
No.
1st?
No,
Okay.
no.
But to be
That ain't
fair,
happening.
for everybody else that might come forward,
right.
we just have to
That
make
needs
sure
to be
that we have
warned
to
and-
level the
yeah.
playing field for everybody.
Right.
Because we want to help everybody.
Yeah.
That's right. Right.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the application as amended to exclude the Flamstead intersection with Depot Street, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Excellent, thank you.
1 second, I'm gonna give this to you.
Okay. Add notes and strike things.
I am.
Yes, well, we have to add in 3 July.
So what is non-bread or non-food
So
or
it's
whatever?
an Indian flatbread.
Okay,
And it has some similarities to pita bread, but not exactly. It's a little thicker. And
Okay.
sometimes spiced with garlic and onions and different things. And it's a
Onion.
traditional thing with a lot of Indian food. And
Okay.
it's marvelous.
Great for soaking up curry juice.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, with scrambled eggs and cheese.
Yeah, all of that too.
So I am gonna tell her that she needs to bring in a modified application that, limits the amount of time for the year.
Lots of details.
And are we wanting her to specify days? Did we,
well, I think she should have some kind of a plan that says,
just a more detailed plan about the,
I'd like to set up wherever for 7 days a week.
sure,
I would
And
like
I'm
to
gonna move
assume.
I'm gonna move the truck every day to go home, or,
Right,
or I'm
sure.
gonna leave it there and ride my bicycle. Just,
Okay.
I think we need to move.
Suggest the.
I can suggest that to her,
What do we
sure.
call that?
It's just the depot green.
Depot green.
I would assume her plan for this is not, I'm going to randomly show up at random locations during random hours on random days.
Right, there must be some kind of.
Some kind of a
Right, she's
plan,
gotta have some
and she could share that
continuity
with
and
us.
consistency to build her business.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, moving right along, set municipal tax rate. So we have in front of us a 3-page document with a tax rate.
And it's got a lot of blanks, because those blanks are all calculated when I get the education rate. The reason we did this last year this way, the reason I am asking you to set the municipal rate only is because we want to get the bills out as soon as we can. So as soon as I get that education tax rate, we would like to go ahead and be able to finish the program, get them submitted. That will happen probably before your next meeting. So this gives us that flexibility. The only thing you have control over is the municipal tax rate. So what we did last year is in a meeting, you did a motion, you set the municipal tax rate. At your next meeting, when I have the education rate, this will all be filled out and you'll officially sign it. But a motion to set the tax rate, municipal tax rate would be helpful.
So we're not signing anything right now, we're just setting.
You're not, but you're doing a motion to authorize me to set that tax rate. Yep.
So I will entertain a motion to authorize Julie to set the 2026 municipal tax rate.
You're not authorizing me to set the tax rate. You're setting the tax
We're
rate.
setting the tax rate, sorry.
It's okay. We've been here since five.
And 1.0912 is the number?
Per thousand.
1.0912
That's the
per
tax rate
100.
per 100.
I tried to slip that in.
I know you. Per 100 of assessments.
Okay,
That represents a 5-cent increase, as was anticipated when we set the budget.
So moved.
so Tim's made the motion, do I have a second?
Okay.
Arnie's a second, any further discussion? So based on that number, you're gonna fill in the rest of it under the.
Once I
local
get the
rate.
education rates, I'll
So,
fill in the rest.
but you could also, you could fill in this part, right?
No, I
or not?
cannot. I need the education rates in order to do that.
Okay,
And when do we expect to get those?
I usually have them by June 30th. They have said we may have them a little early this year, believe it when I see it, which is why I'm asking you to go ahead and approve this. It's not gonna happen, but
okay.
statute says they have to give it to us by June 30th.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor of setting the 2026 municipal tax rate at $1.0912 per 100. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Liquor license and entertainment permit approvals. So we have gotten applications for entertainment from Okemo Valley Hospitality, Inc., Fullerton Inn at 40 The Common. And should have gotten, there's several of them, sorry.
Just wanna read 'em
So
all.
the first is Neighborhood Connections.
And just read out those. You can approve them in one motion. if you want.
Okay. So one-time occasion Neighborhood Connections, first class Okemo Valley Hospitality, second class Smitty's Chester Market and DG Retail, third class Okemo Valley Hospitality, outside consumption Okemo Valley Hospitality and Medicina, entertainment permit Okemo Valley Hospitality. So I will entertain a motion to approve the liquor license and entertainment permit applications for those entities.
So moved.
Tim has made the motion. Second,
Second.
Lawrence made the second. Any further discussion?
Just my usual question, Julia.
Yeah, we're all good.
They're all good. No
Okay.
police reports, no
Nope,
complaints.
Nope. No.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and your signature is required. And next, I'm sorry, I'm rushing. Way past my bed. Just kidding. 7:38. Hey, Arnie's,
What's that?
you're yawning.
I know, I'm sorry.
Spreading it around.
No, you started it. Come on, Luke.
One's good for all.
The rest don't need the signatures. The only one that needs a signature is the entertainment permit.
Next on our agenda are cemetery deeds. We have 3 of them, Deborah Armstrong, Prescott Field, and Carl and Judy Spalding. Do we need a motion, we're just signing?
Motions, and then,
So I will entertain a motion. Can we do all 3 of them?
sure.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the cemetery lot purchases for Deborah F. Armstrong, Prescott Heald, and Carl Spalding and Judy Spalding.
So move.
So Arnie's made the motion. Second, Peter's a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed, nay. And we sign here.
Yes.
That's all right. Next is new business and the next agenda. And so Billy has included in the manager memo, the July 1st, a review of services for administration departments, traffic ordinance, notary policy, Ingram Hill road request for discontinuance of class 4 section.
So that Ingram Hill piece, again, you're not gonna take action on it because Jim has said until this class 4 road stuff is figured out. But I have received it, you need to acknowledge it, and give the landowner the opportunity to come in. So that will be on that meeting, but that's the expectation.
Okay.
So we're waiting for the final on the Wyman's Falls and what's going on there, basically.
Correct. Jim just doesn't feel you should make any major decisions that could affect
Until
that.
yeah.
Correct.
So at some point, I think we should address some of the issues that are brought up in our auditor's report meeting about changing the fiscal year and quarterly billing.
Sure. Do you want to talk about those on the 15th under financial update?
Sure.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Talk about it then?
That'd be great.
Okay.
And also, we should discuss during that, the informational meetings relative to the budget and tax increases. We said we were going to get input from the citizenry about what services we want.
Right. So your review of services for administration is July 1st.
Oh, okay, so that's
And
what
then the
that is.
15th is Recreation Department and Facilities, and then August 5th will be all the public safeties. And then the 19th is highway.
Wasn't clear to me what
That's
that meant.
okay.
So now I
Glad to
now I know.
so on the 15th, I'd kind of like the review of whether we vote the town budget by Australian ballot.
Okay.
Anything else on the new business or next agenda?
I already told Julie, but just so you'll know, I won't be here on August 5th.
Okay. Next on the agenda is executive session. Do you have the language or am I just?
We don't have to do the two motions, because this is
Okay.
under A313A2. So
Okay.
just I would read it from the agenda.
So we are, I'll entertain a motion to enter executive session pursuant to 1 VSA section 313A2, negotiating and securing a real estate purchase.
So moved.
Lawrence made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Peter's the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you very much. We're now in executive session. Thank you for coming. And we're not